They call themselves progressives who are willing to sell out Palestinians, black people, and poor people in order to win. So as black people, as people who are anti-war, I am asking you guys, what do we get out of this? What exactly do anti-colonial movement, if you're a Palestinian, if you're a black person, if you're any of these disenfranchised classes, why should we join your movement that literally designed to win over white suburbia? This movement has been a complete failure and an enabler of white supremacy. But go ahead, CJ. I'm done with my presentation. Yeah, if you have anything.
No, this is for your segment. This is for this segment because I want to piggyback off because I tweeted about this. As the Democratic Party moves right, progressive Democrats must do the same to stay in the good graces of the party. You get what I'm saying? Like, just think about it. And I go on to say John Fetterman, as a progressive, shows how U.S. progressives have regressed ideologically. U.S. progressives are moving backwards, which they have to do because they have to stay in lock and stands with the Democratic Party that keeps shifting right. You notice, Nick? No more BDS. You just named a bunch of things. They're okay with selling out BDS. They're okay with $15 minimum wage not being a red line. They're okay with the parliamentarian being the excuse, so they're not pushing it. They're okay with, selling out for a committee assignment that's not going to get you anything. They're okay with selling out everybody but themselves to get crumbs. Go ahead.
That's why this is the modern progressive movement is literally just a white boy movement. That's all it is. It's literally just a white boy movement. Let's fight for Medicare for all. Let's fight for a Christian minimum wage. Things that will help us. Oh, how about standing for the Palestinians? How about resisting the Democratic Party apparatus that is bombing Africa? Nah, not doing that. Nah, we're not doing anything that's gonna make us uncomfortable. Staying with the global South. Nah, not doing that. So I'm pulling this back up. I want to read a quote from a Palestinian activist. You heard from Ashley. I'm gonna get her back on the show. Ashley was amazing from the Palestinian Community Network and how she talked about like the language that she used to describe the squad and Nina Turner. You guys see where I get my language from. She pretty much said, "Fuck all those people," and that is the mindset of Palestinians. The only people that are still cheering on the Justice Democrat Bernie Sanders strategy are these white leftists that have nothing to lose. Do these look like people who have anything to lose? Do these like people who are gonna be victimized by the government that is ran by these neocons like John Fetterman and Maxwell? No. So this is the Palestinian guy talking about Maxwell frauds who sold out the Palestinians. He said, "I was absolutely enraged. I marched alongside this guy every day for months. At a minimum, we had a very high level of camaraderie." I cut these three segments out, but they go into that in the article. They explain how much the Palestinians were betrayed. They cursed them. They wish they never was friends with them. But meanwhile, if you was to ask all these people, they would think, "Oh, they're not a big deal. You just weak about Palestinian rights. Why are you guys being a purist? Why are you being a purist? Yeah, you support a little bit of genocide, just a little bit of genocide. Why was over your pure litmus test?" That is the reaction that the white left will give you, right? So I keep this short. If you want,
we can bring up the Vageland. Yeah, let's bring
I
up
can stay for like maybe 15 minutes. So I can at least start the segment out. So.
Yeah, so let me bring up her tweet first, and then we'll show the. Is this the tweet? Yes. Ooh, let me bring it down a little bit. Yeah, sorry everybody. So she says, and then we're gonna play the actual video that says the same thing. Now, you want to read that, Nick?
Emma says, I was looking at some chats. Emma says, "Voting isn't an expression of your individual artistry or an expression of your special soul. It's a strategic but necessary step in the fight for change. Base it in realism. Vote Democrat. Vote with who unions back. Vote to prevent cuts to Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid." And this tweet is exactly why Emma Vigeland is Democratic Party operatives. And no matter what they do during those 2-year gaps between elections where they pretend, oh, I'm critical of Democrats. Hey, I called out Joe Biden the other day. I called out Nancy Pelosi, guys. Look at me. That shit, all your critical coverage of the Democrats means absolutely nothing if you tweet this every 2 years. Are we clear? If you're going to tweet this every 2 years, why should the Democrats be upset when you criticize them? Why should they feel a threat from you? They don't. If anything, you are an agent of that party and you do their bidding better than anyone else because you're here to get people who will criticize the Democratic Party. You get people who have the same anti-establishment vibes as you do, right? And then every 2 years, you're like, yeah, you guys see, I'm cool like you guys. I'm cool like you. I'm down with you people. Hey, we should vote Democrat though, right? Motherfuckers like, what? Nigga, did you just criticize them for 2 years? Then some people are confused and they're like, oh yeah, I guess I go along with it. I know. You see how they get people who consider themselves to be radical, these socialists. They get them to shift to the right. Anyway, CJ, anything else you want to add to this?
Yeah. I want to play the actual video. I want to play it. So she essentially says the same exact thing in the video, but we're going to get the long version. And she gives a little more explanation. Now, I don't know, other than the clip you saw on... Hang on a second here. Let me pause this.
It wasn't like he was...
Like, you've seen just a short snippet. So you may not have seen the whole explanation, but we're going to start with the video snippet, and that's at the very end is when this clip is, when she says all this stuff. So we'll start there, and then if you want more explanation as time fit, we'll give more explanation here. So here is Emma Vigeland's explanation. Now, the title of this video, if anybody wants to check it out, it's on the Majority Report. Get out and vote. I'll play a little more, like the last 2 minutes here. Let's see.
This could be a federal ban in a couple of years. And I don't know that Democrats did a great job of pushing that concept. I'm not sure how you would necessarily, but
they lied to you then, they'll lie to you now.
Lindsey Graham introduced the
I know, right? They
I mean, so but all right.
But also, can I just say one thing on elections? Like, labor
this
supports
is it right
Democrats.
here.
It's easy.
Yeah.
For the Democrats. I mean, of course, all the like.
So, of course, the no-face guy off screen is the one who starts it. But he's if you didn't hear it clearly, because it's not that audible, he says you should vote for the Democrats. That's the start, just to start with. That's what he says. So that's how this section starts. So let's listen again.
But all right.
But also, can I just say one thing on elections? Like, labor supports Democrats. It's easy. Vote for the Democrats. I mean, of course, all the the abortion stuff. I hope that turns stuff out. But like, I don't understand this whole like contrarian brand of like, or like their right wing thing, acting like we need to like have Fetterman's like up to date health info. Labor supports him, so vote for that guy.
The only labor that doesn't support Democrats are like cop unions. Are cop unions.
Yeah.
That's the only.
It's unbelievable they are using this logic.
Vote for people who labor support.
Real quick, it's literally unbelievable using this logic. Cause do they understand that liberals were using the same logic against Bernie Sanders? The liberals kept saying, "Oh my God, look at all these unions that are endorsing for Joe Biden. Look at all these unions that are endorsing for Hillary Clinton." You want to know why they did that? Because a lot of these unions are captured by capitalists.
Right.
And we explained on this show that union leader organizers, like the one at the Frito-Lay strike, was working against the strikers in order to get a deal done. And this is a big blind spot by social democrats. Unions could be a useful tool for us to gain worker power, but they do not bring up the fact that our current unions have been captured and they are controlled by capitalists that infiltrate those unions to make the unions weaker. So a lot of times the unions come to negotiate an end to a strike on the benefit of the management. And a lot of these unions are straight up just captured. Like, go look up the union endorsement for Hillary Clinton in 2016. That is not the argument. We need to take the unions back, not endorse the current union leadership that are in charge. They are garbage. There are a lot of criticism. I've seen a lot of the corruption that the teacher unions have done that screwed teachers, and that's considered a good union. But they haven't been great to teachers either. Unions can be a powerful tool. Look at great start, Jimmy, because what a lot of these Bernie people, what they have become is essentially Democrats. I was not a Democrat, and what a lot of people who criticize RBN, they always fail to leave out. I quit my job and I canvassed for over 3 states, knocked on thousands of doors for Bernie Sanders. Not many people have done more for the Bernie Sanders movement than I did, and that's just a fact. That's a fact. And guys, I'm telling you guys right now, Jimmy got me fired up too. I did not sign up for this. I admit I was tricked. I thought that we was organizing a movement to resist the two-party duopoly. We were just using the strategy of using the Democratic Party infrastructure, but that was not their goal. Their goal was to become Democratic Party insiders. So as someone who was a part of that movement, I'm done. Like voting for NATO, voting to bust unions, voting for Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries, Jimmy. That was never part of the deal.
They're never going to do. And I mean, it is just stunning what has happened. But what's more stunning is the people who used to be part of the Bernie movement, like you and me, but the other people, like TYT, like Kyle Kulinski and Rachel, and all those people who were on board with Bernie Sanders are now just like Bernie Sanders, sucking the cock of the oligarchy and propping up war pigs. That's what they are. Bernie Sanders and the squad are fucking war pigs. Okay, and we have to call them war pigs. Bernie is a war pig, and when you vote for them, you're voting for war fucking pigs. You should be opposing them. If you're a war pig, you are not. You're the opposite of a goddamn progressive. So what happened to the rest of the people? All of a sudden, now I stayed consistent. You know, somebody put a video together showing how Humanist Report and Jordan Sheridan, how they completely flipped the script on themselves. How they used to sound like us, and now they sound like Cenk Uygur and David Sirota and Ryan Grimm, making apologies for politicians constantly and shaming activists. So what they do is they shit on activists, like when you did your general strike summit, they shit on that. Like when we did force the vote, they shit on that. It's the craziest fucking thing I've ever seen. Well, it's not crazy once you know what's going on. These people are in the establishment. They are the establishment. You don't take checks from billionaires and you don't get $24 million from right wingers, and then you're a fucking lefty progressive. So, and Bernie Sanders completely folded his organization, his movement, into a pro-war, anti-worker party. And he makes no excuses for it. In fact, what he does is when people show up to protest him about his war piggery, he shames them and smears activists, peace activists. Bernie Sanders smears peace activists and asks them who's paying them. Bernie Sanders says that. By the way, he stopped saying millionaires and billionaires. Isn't that weird? He stopped saying millionaires and billionaires? Because Joe Biden had, 100,000 billionaires giving him fucking money, and that's his good friend. Where is Bernie Sanders' criticism of Joe Biden right now? It is non-existent. Bernie Sanders is a war pig who is now turned into the enemy of fucking workers because he won't stand up against this goddamn party that he keeps funneling revolutionary energy into it. And just like Shama Sawant says, the road for progressives inside the Democratic Party leads to a goddamn graveyard. Bernie Sanders knows that. Everybody at TYT knows that. Kyle Kulinski knows. All those fucking people know that, but they're going to go along because they are nutless, gutless fucking wonders, and they're the farthest thing from revolutionaries, and that's what we need right now. They don't even understand what revolution is. They have no idea. They are incrementalists. We thought we were done with incrementalism in 2016, and now they hail it as being the most grown-up thing in the world you can do. It's unbelievable. These people don't have the balls to stand up against big pharma or criminals like fucking Fauci. They never had the balls to stand up against that shit. I did it. Turns out I was 100% fucking right, just like I was right about fucking Russiagate and Syria and now Ukraine. These fucking war pigs are not fucking progressives, and we got to get out of the goddamn Democratic and Republican Party.
Let me chime in, Nick, really quick. And Jimmy, good to meet you. I think this is our first time on camera. I want to speak to what you said earlier, which was you alluded to the culture war. Like, do we want to talk about culture war? Let me get your take on what I think this is. I think now the GOP, this is their political sort of strategy. What they do in order, because this is the ruling class, this is how they work the red arm of it, is that they use the Republican Party to start these wedge, or whoever starts it, but there's these wedge culture issues in order to separate specifically the white worker from everybody else. That's their intention. So these culture war things that are happening, and then if you notice to who you spoke to, Jimmy, you said TYT, the majority report, Sam Cedars, now even Jordan Sheraton, which is crazy, is now leaning heavily into culture war. But what is your thought as the GOP? This is their strategy, because this is the strategy. Now walk with me with this logic, everybody in the audience, is that the newest left thing the GOP uses so that they can separate the white worker from everybody else. And then the reason they do that is because the pop culture starts on the coast and it doesn't reach middle America till later. So, for example, cigarette smoking in California, they thought that was crazy when I went home to visit in Houston. But then, then it travels inland. And then, so this is one of the issues. Defund the police is another one, where it's like these very new or newish or rebranded issues where, and maybe trans could be one of them. Defund the police is another one, where these culture wars, they're trying to fight in order to separate the white worker. I know it is a mouthful, Jimmy. Any part of that, if you want to address or just give your opinion on that. You're muted. He's muted.
Of division. They have the politics of identity politics, and they have the politics of blaming Russia. So, I have a brother who all he cares about is Russia. He thinks Russia is they committed a coup on this country. That's what they'll say. And I'm like, Russia can't even get their good vodka into Trader Joe's. Russia did not do this. The reason why 80% of workers live paycheck to paycheck, half the country can't afford a $500 emergency, and we got people living under every bridge, is just because of Vladimir Putin. It's because of the criminal, corrupt motherfuckers that we've had running this country for 40 or 50 years. Your democracy was stolen from you a long time ago, and now so what they have is their corporate media to report every story in a way that divides the country. I was watching a clip from The View yesterday, and they were covering Balenciaga, where those people are grooming little kids for sex stuff. And they immediately took that story and they made it into an anti-Trump story. I'm like, what the fuck does Trump have to do with this? So no matter what the story is, they're going to report it in a way that divides the country. No matter if it's the border crisis, no matter if it's climate change, no matter if it's vaccines. No matter, Trump still wants, he's the one who developed the goddamn vaccine, right, and he still wants credit for it, and they still call him and his followers anti-vaxxers. So no matter what it is, they're going to, like Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 white people. They'll tell you that he shot 3 black people. So no matter how they're going to report this story, no matter what the story is, they're going to report it in a way that divides the country. And so that's all they have left. And that's all and identity politics. And I have to explain to people what I mean when I say identity politics is they put a person from a marginalized group in charge of fixing the problem with no intention of ever fixing it. So you don't talk about it anymore. And my joke that I do in my act is if it was 1860, Kulinski, the Democrats wouldn't be fixing slavery. They'd be bragging about their first transgendered slave owner. So that's where we are right now. That's exactly what they're doing. They're not, if they're not making life better for black and brown people, they're pretending they are. You know what would help black and brown people more than anything? Medicare. How about a living wage? How about ending those wars and investing that money back here? How about getting rid of the fucking industrial prison complex? That's the kind of shit that would help black and brown people. But you want to scream fascist at half the country while you are actually committing fascism, which is what this railroad screwing of the railroad workers was. And everybody came together except one progressive in the House. Everybody came together to be fascists. So when they scream fascist, that's just because they have nothing to offer you to run on. The Democrats aren't going to give you a living wage. They're not going to give you health care. They're not going to end those wars. They're not going to deconstruct the prison complex. They're not going to fucking defund the police. They're not going to do any of that shit. So that's all they have left, and that's exactly right. It is. They don't want you to think about a class war, because that's what this is. They want you to think about a culture war, and that's all they have now. So we have people. We have Pete Buttigieg, right? So Pete Buttigieg, who has two things going for him: that he's gay, and that nobody knew anything about him because he fucking doesn't have any accomplishments. The guy couldn't fix a pothole in South Bend, Indiana. They made him head of the fucking transportation. And then in the middle of the biggest supply chain fuck up in them, people can't get their fucking baby formula. And that guy takes a month off fucking work on purpose. And I'm for parental leave for everybody except that motherfucking guy. I'll tell you that. In the middle of really, so when people can't get their fucking baby formula, you're gonna go fucking home, and so you can watch your nanny raise your fucking kid. Anyway, that's all they have now is identity politics and the division and the politics of division. And so that's why the message of my show and my live show is that working people of the same class, left, right, black, white, it doesn't matter. We all have a common enemy. And that's what they don't want you to understand, because once we figure out we have a common enemy, we can do great things like Christian Smalls did in
Now, on the Cornel West front, look, understand something. I would like to talk to him and ask him, what do you think you're doing here? Like, what do you think you're doing here? Do you actually think you can win? Because you can't, because we don't have ranked choice voting. We still have first past the post voting. So what's your highest goal that you think you could achieve? Is it the 5% for the Green Party? Is that what it is? So that you can get matching funds and make it more viable? But again, I hate to tell you, the Green Party and no third party will be viable unless and until we get ranked choice voting. Because until that point, there's always going to be this perception you're just a spoiler candidate. And by the way, if we get into a general election and it's Biden versus Trump, and Trump ends up winning because Cornel West got 5% of the vote or something, or 3% of the vote, and he gets blamed, that's going to set the movement back so much. People are going to look at leftists as spoiled brats who are just getting in the way. Now, that's totally separate from the question as to whether or not the spoiler effect actually is real. But there's going to be a perception that it's real, and everybody's going to blame the left for Donald Trump winning. Now, I don't want that to happen. I know you guys don't want that to happen. So I'd love to ask Cornel West, like, what exactly are you doing here? Now, if he was going to run, he should have run as a Democrat. Why do I say that? What's he polling at now? 1%? Well, Marianne Williamson is barely getting any media coverage, and she's still at 10% or more. So she's at 10 times what Cornel West is, simply because she decided to run as a Democrat. So I don't know what the strategy is. If you don't have ranked choice voting, if you don't get rid of first past the post voting, you're just doing a virtue signal fest. That's all it is. If you actually want to win, if you actually care about getting the country to change for the better, there's an intelligent way to do that, and not a way that self-disenfranchises you from being taken seriously. So
this is hard. This is hard to
watch. I would love
watch.
to ask him, like, what exactly is the goal here? Is the goal to get to 5%? Does he understand that the only way the Green Party or the Libertarian Party or any of these other parties would be viable is if you get ranked choice voting first? Does he understand that? I don't know.
Okay. Welcome to another episode of Straight Out of Politics. So let me say it the right way. Straight Out of Politics. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ, J in real life, and my family calls me James. So this was hard to watch. So, and it's just dropped in my lap about an hour ago. About an hour ago is when I saw this on Twitter. And I'm like, oh my God. So we're going to fit it in at the introduction and talk about this. It's I don't know how you can be this bad all the time. It seems like the professional managerial class, the NATO left, it seems like they go, what can we do today to totally discredit me as a leftist? What can I do today? It feels like that, because Breaking Points put out a video yesterday, or whenever it was. It wasn't yesterday, maybe the day 2 days ago. Crystal Ball talking about Cornel West. She gets destroyed in her own comments. Went there. I didn't see one comment out of 40 comments I read, not one positive. So they have to be so insulated for them not to be hearing the sort of backlash that they're getting from these positions that they're taking. But let's revisit Kyle. And since this just dropped in my lap, I didn't have this as a title. Kyle doubles down on crystals nonsense. Is that how you spell nonsense? Yes. All right, so let's give it that title, and we'll use this as our introduction for today. This is hard to watch. I already know I'm probably gonna stop it at least 10 times, so I'm glad that I was able to play the whole thing so you saw it, because I'm gonna have to stop this. There's no way that I can get through this. But Kyle doubles down on Crystal's nonsense. So obviously, maybe this was some sort of coordinated plan for them to come out with these videos back to back. Man, I wish I had like a shot of Johnny Walker or something. All right, let's do this. Let's listen to this again.
Now, on the Cornel West front, look, understand something. I would like to talk to him and ask him, what do you think you're doing here? Like, what
do you think you're doing? Cornel West is about 30 years older than Kyle. Cornel West, if you want to go the PMC route, has how many more degrees from how many better universities? But he wants to phrase the question as, what do you think, idiot, you're doing? Because inserting think implies you don't have any idea what you're doing. So it's to say, what you're doing is not what you think you're doing. So tell me, what is it you think you're doing? This is the guy who says he has all this respect for him. This guy. Blondie here. So let's listen a little more. But just to start out, this is not starting out in any sort of respectful way whatsoever.
Like, what do you think you're doing here?
I mean, and then let's do this. The things he says, we're going to talk about it with Cornel West, and then we'll talk about it with Marianne Williamson. What do you think you're doing, Marianne Williamson? What do you think you're doing?
Do you actually think you can win?
Does Marianne Williamson actually think you can win? Does she actually thinks she can win? I think there was a poll I saw day before yesterday. It had Biden at 60%. It had RFK at 19, and it had Marianne Williamson at 10. So there's a 50-point gap there. So a 50-point gap in a primary. Do you understand? This is not a national election. This is a primary. Cornel West is getting 4% in a national poll. 4% in a national poll. So let's listen a little more to I don't know. Let's listen to this guy. What you want to call him?
Because you can't, because we don't have ranked choice voting. We still have first past the post voting. So what's your highest goal that you think you could achieve? Is it the 5% for the Green Party? Is that what it is? So that you can get matching funds and make it more viable? But again, I hate to tell you, the Green Party and no third party will be viable unless and until we.
Wait, so let's assume he would answer 5%. He's at 4% now. The goal is to get to 5%. So what if that is the singular goal? What's wrong with that? What is the answer, or what is your retort, Kyle, to that? Just want to get 5%. Nothing else. He says nothing else. Just want to get to 5%. What's the problem? He's polling now at 4%. Wouldn't he have an argument to say, listen, Kyle, I'm at 4% polling. I'm just 1% away from 5%. There you go. Let's listen more to this guy.
We get ranked choice voting. Because until that point, there's always funds and make it more viable. But again, I hate to tell you, the Green Party and no third party will be viable unless and until we get ranked.
And this is the argument that the professional managerial class, the NATO left, the pseudo left uses as to say, I would be with you with third parties except for this. That's what they use, right? I was looking up the characters on Scooby-Doo. Fred. That's what we should be calling Fred from Scooby-Doo. Is what we should be calling Kyle. Sorry, I was searching it in another screen. But let's get back to the video. Oh, it took that long. I like the name Shaggy, but it doesn't fit him.
Green Party and no third party will be viable unless and until
viability. That's what I wanted to discuss. So viable. Let's talk about this, because this is the number one sort of reason, or one of the top reasons they give. Viability. We have to stop letting the professional managerial class, the NATO left, the pseudo left, frame the issue. Stop letting them frame the issue. I believe it was a conversation with Brianna Joy Gray when I think we were on Bad Faith, or maybe it was when she came on here. And this is how I broke it down. Why is it with the Green Party or any third party, you're not viable this upcoming year? Meaning, Cornel West, you're not viable in 2024. Is any left candidate in the Democratic Party viable in 2024? How can it be a rigged election, which all of you acknowledge, Kyle, and it also be viable for a progressive Democrat? How can both of those things be true? If something is rigged, by definition, no other pathways are viable. And they use this viability argument. And back to the what I was saying earlier, the conversation with Bree, I was saying that we allow them to frame it the wrong way because it's all about viability. The viability sort of hurdle they only put up for third parties, the viability hurdle, because they have less viability of winning than the third party does because they're running within a Democratic Party that can crush them in the primary. So this mirage of viability, this mirage of a path, there is no path for a progressive Democrat, for a lefty through the Democratic or the Republican Party for that matter. There is no pathway. They're rigged. But they always want to leave this viability hurdle for a third party. But the point, but this never applies, to finish the point about what I was saying to Bree, but this never applies to the Democratic progressive. Why is it Cornel West has to be viable in 2024, but Marianne Williamson doesn't have to be viable in 2024 for us to support her? You see what I mean? The viability only applies to the third party. Anyway, I belabor the point. Let's continue.
Until we get ranked choice voting. Because until that point, there's always going to be this perception you're just a spoiler candidate. And
who cares about perception? Here's another thing. Who was just talking about this? Oh, Crystal Ball. AOC, relational harm. What they're talking about here, relational harm. This is the phrase that was coined by, I believe it was AOC. I hadn't heard it before that, but it was somebody before her, then give them credit. Relational harm. In the video we covered yesterday, where ironically Crystal Ball or Crystal Kulinski is also sort of attacking Cornel West. She makes the same argument about relational harm because this is what her whole point was. Cornel West is hurting the left, and that is actually the title of the video. You can go watch that we did yesterday. And her point is he's hurting it in the relationships that we could foster with Democratic leadership. Relational harm. And that's what he's saying here too. Let's let him finish. I'll rewind it just slightly.
There's always going to be this perception you're just a spoiler candidate. And by the way, if we get into a general election and it's Biden versus Trump, and Trump ends up winning because Cornel West got 5% of the vote or something, or 3% of the vote,
we don't care, because a Joe Biden in a Joe Biden in office and a Donald Trump in office means nothing different for regular working class poor people. Maybe for rich people like you, Kyle, but for the vast majority of people, there is no difference. And the problem with your argument now, why it's going to have less legs on it, is because people have lived through both presidencies. So you can't sell a boogeyman if we've met the boogeyman anymore. So you can't say, oh, the boogeyman, we met the boogeyman. And we know this current boogeyman too. We met both of them, no difference. So why don't we strategize to get to the places and reach the milestone we want to do, irregardless of the O2, because it doesn't matter which one gets into office. This is why it's so important, and this is why I believe that Kyle Kulinski and Crystal Ball have recently been pushing Democrats are way better. Because that's the only way to sell this argument, is that the Democrats are way better. And that's what he's been selling. But let's continue with Kyle. Let's try to get through this a little quicker.
vote and he gets blamed, that's going to set the movement back so much. People are going to look at leftists as spoiled brats who are just getting in the way. Now, that's totally separate from the question as to whether or not the spoiler effect actually is real. But there's going to be a perception that it's real, and everybody's going to blame the left for Donald Trump winning. Now, I don't want that to happen. I know.
This is where he's talking about relational harm. And he's going to address those of us who don't give a damn about relational harm. Let's listen.
Blame the left for Donald Trump winning. Now, I don't want that to happen. I know you guys don't want that to happen. So I'd love to ask Cornel West, like, what exactly are you doing here? Now, if he was going to run, he should.
We don't know. You don't want that to happen in the professional managerial class. The people who want to build their careers or build their companies on the Democratic Party. You don't want that to happen. All of the rest of us don't care about any of this. Oh, Nancy Pelosi hates her. We hate her too. Oh, Joe Biden hates him. Oh, we hate him too. And what's the point? Relational harm only matters if you want a long-term relationship with the person or entity. So this is a tale. Crystal Ball and Kyle Kulinski, the Kulinskis, how about we call them that? The Kulinskis. The Kulinskis. Okay. So, Aaron, if you could put there the graphic or Turncoat Don or Post Duopoly on Twitter, you know who you are, Post Duopoly. Any of you want to put together some some sort of graphic or a video, the Kulinskis, and maybe having all their bad takes. What's up, JB?
Yo,
what's up, sir?
Bro, hold up. Wait. I was doing the channel stuff and I was chiming in because I was just like, hold up, let me see what CJ's talking about. And I was just like, by the way, I did not plan for us to match like this.
Oh,
bruh,
but we are.
I was not planning.
Great
this,
minds.
Hey,
J show, and we dress alike. We have the same name, and we dress alike. That's how we do it.
And we look fly with our beard. Man, come on now, like let's do this. But hold up. Okay, so I was listening to what you were saying, especially about what Kyle is talking about, how people like Dr. Cornel West is going to be a spoiler. Here's the thing that I think that Kyle doesn't realize. He realized before, but he doesn't realize now. We want Cornel West to be a spoiler. Like, yes. In the words of Kyle Kulinski, blame us. Yes. Go ahead. Yes. Do it. Because, see, it's funny how somebody like Kyle is now basically being the person that he was against 2-3 years ago. Now he's turned into that person. It's wild on his face. Like, look, Crystal Ball and her Slim Shady husband are basically being the same person that they were against a couple of years ago. And so now they're going, well, oh, he's going to be a spoiler. He's going to make sure that Joe Biden doesn't win. Good.
Why do you think they changed? Why do you think they changed? What do you think happened?
Oh, CJ, you don't want to ask me that, because if I do, then
I mean, is it a simply Trump derangement, or is it something? Is it money? Do they see a different future? Are they trying to build a network, or is it all the above? Like, what do you think is causing this switch?
They gave up.
That too.
They gave up. It's basically. We might as well just accept the Democrats as they are. And it's always we're just going to have to wait till another time. Mm-hmm. We're just going to have to wait till another moment, right? It's always, this is the best we got. He's sounding very Sam Cedar-ish. This is the best we have, right? I don't care. This is basically what it is. And so, but that is a very privileged position to be in for the reason that Kyle is not in the situation that you or I are in. Number one, Kyle is a straight white man in the United States. That's a very privileged position right there. Number two, financially, he is way better off than somebody like you.
Way better. way
better off, right? Plus, he married a millionaire. So he's better off in that position as well, right? And then another thing is he has the ability to say, well, we just have to wait a little bit longer. Whereas you and I do not have that ability to say that. We were catching hell during Trump. We were catching hell during Biden. And we will continue to catch hell during whatever demo Republican candidate that they stand behind. And another thing, in addition to and furthermore, right? Why in the hell is he advocating for a blue Trump? And then he says, oh, they're different. When in reality, if you go down fundamentally by the policy choices that they do, not what they say, what they do, they're really the same. They're inextricably linked. Biden, Trump, like hotel, motel,
damn.
Right? It's the same, right, DJ? So if that's the case, then why are you advocating for that? Because we're getting the exact same shit that we've been getting since before. Because for instance, are you doing financially better now than where you were under Trump?
No, that's the point I was just making. It's the same.
Right. Same thing for me. I'm not doing any better under Trump versus Biden. So is there really going to be a change when your right hand goes to your left hand? No. So who the fuck cares if it's Biden or Trump in the White House? Because all it is just you taking, like for instance, this can of nuts, it goes from one hand to the other, but it's in the same person's hand. That's it. So for somebody like him, it makes a difference. How? It doesn't make a difference. And the thing is that in the end of the day, he's still going to be fine. We will not still be fine. We're not fine now, and we won't be fine either if Biden stays or Trump stays, or by what we think may happen is when they switch it over to, greasehead Gavin Newsom. It's going to be the same. So this is why we're going in a completely different direction. Who's the nihilist now, by the way? We're going into a different direction because we're like, no, insanity is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. Results. The thing is that we're trying to go for a different result, which is going with somebody who's outside of the duopoly. And on top of that, even if, and we all know that the chances of somebody like a Dr. Cornel West are very slim to none, which is fine. But ultimately, it's about the argument that's being given, right? The argument that's being given by him, and that increases the conversation in the ether so that we can go, through our chapters and start preaching to people about class consciousness, worker solidarity, and building dual powers so that we can actually build for a better future as a collective, because we all know that we save us. So that's the thing that I think that we're trying to do, is we're technically, in a sense, using the message of Dr. West in order to preach something better.
Right.
Even if it doesn't happen through Dr. West, which it won't, it's going to happen from the bottom up from us. But we're just using him as an example in order for us to push for a better system. And he has the biggest megaphone out of anybody that could have ran in the Green Party, which, hey, now it's happening. So that's basically
and we simply JB can't miss this opportunity, because we've been saying, I just recall the last time go around, we were like, who can we get? Let's draft Jesse Ventura. Remember that fight people were having online? Let's do this because now we have literally, I can't even think of a better candidate than Dr. Cornel West for this position, and we're supposed to give up on this? There's no way. But to your point, because you broke it down so beautifully with several analogies which you're known for. Somebody should like collect all your analogies, put them like in a pamphlet or a book.
Don't make me laugh because that
would be so funny. But to your point, one of your central points you were making, and this is what I was saying, is that the Trump boogeyman, that's no longer an effective argument. That's no longer going to be as effective as it was before. And it's two reasons. We've lived through a Joe Biden presidency now. So it's no longer we're living under a Trump presidency, and Joe Biden presidency is described as this great heaven. You get what I'm saying? Because nobody has experienced. So it's like, it's going to be great. It's going to be waterfalls and candy everywhere for everybody. You get what I'm saying? But now we've lived through it, and we see that they're serving us garbage on the lid of a garbage can. So they can't sell us anything else in comparison to the Trump president. Go ahead, JB. You're going to chime in.
Yeah, CJ, look, even 20% of black men aren't even scared of Trump anymore, and they're a marginalized community. Right. Like the Democrats essentially fucked up that bad that you can't even keep black men. Me and Sabby are going to be talking about this tonight on the Sabby and JB show. The fact that black men are now starting to go, you know what? Trump ain't so bad. What? Look, the Democratic Party messed up so bad that some black men are willing to trade one racist for another. And you want to tell us by going outside the Democratic Party that we somehow are going to risk the election for a racist?
Pretty much.
Make that make sense?
Ain't that something?
Right? It's weird because it's like, okay, so what is Biden? If you describe Biden in every fundamental way that we are against, you're also describing Trump, right? That's basically all you're doing. And yet you're trying to make an argument for him. I say Kyle needs to take several seats.
Several. Take several. You need more than one, sir. But another point you're making is that these people, some black men, some black people in general, we did several segments on how black support is wavering. But Trump ain't so bad because they can just point to Biden and go, what do you mean Trump bad? Joe Biden, we have high inflation. It got up to like 8 or 9%. We have 8-9% inflation. What do you mean Trump bad? We're at war in Ukraine and sending billions over there. What do you mean Trump bad? Homeless population has gone up to 11%, at least in California. I don't know if that's nationwide. What do you mean Trump bad? We're funding the military and industrial complex by billions of dollars more than we were. Mm-hmm. So you get what I'm saying? So what do you mean Trump bad? What do you mean Trump bad? He's a racist? Have you seen the funding of ICE by this president? Have you seen deportations go up by this president? Did you see what he did to the Haitians immigrants that were trying to go over here? This was months ago, maybe even a year ago. And it was a classic picture of them trying to, I think they were on horses. Officers were on horses trying to catch some Haitians or something like that. It's so easily to just go, what do you mean Trump bad? Have you been living for the last 2 years through this current presidency? So that's why it's such a hard sell. It's such a hard sell. And the thing is, nobody's saying this Trump is great or we're advocating. It's just that it's measurable. Like we can go, what was the funding for ICE under Trump? What was the funding for ICE under Biden? It's higher here. That's something measurable we can see. Like there's nothing deportation. Oh, this number is higher. Who was president? Biden. You get what I'm saying? There's nothing else to say. It's measurably different, and that's why I think there's going to be a hard spell, JB.
It's going to be a very revealing time, especially by the time we hit, I say February. By the time the start of the primaries, it's going to be a very revealing time, and the heat is on, because I don't know if you got to catch what Donald Trump said recently about Rupert Murdoch as well as Ron DeSantis. He actually, shots were fired at Rupert Murdoch and
No,
Ron
I didn't
DeSantis.
hear about that.
Oh, yeah. Trump fired shots at DeSantis and Murdoch. So, and everybody knows, anybody named Mama knows now that Rupert Murdoch is actually saying we're dumping Trump and we're getting behind Ron DeSantis on Fox News.
Trying
He didn't
to
say
do
that
that,
Fox News, but internal.
He's trying to do that.
Yeah, internal leaks have actually shown that they're going to be doing that. So, in fact, I think you saw I made a TikTok about it, regarding them praising, Ron DeSantis for basically just doing his job here in Florida. And so it's that plus, what's going on with Trump. A lot of people now are seeing that we have two devils, and we both know both devils, but one devil, his hell was less hotter than the other. So that's basically what it is. It is desperation. And so that's why people are now turning, especially, an influx of black men are now turning Trump, because it's like, okay, they both stuck the knife in us, except the Democrats took out the knife only 2 inches, whereas the Republicans, they feel, or Trump will take out the knife 4 inches.
Right.
So
this is what the lesser of two evils gets us. This is it. So what do you do? Anyway, but you're welcome to stay around or dip whenever you want. But I'm just gonna play the rest of the video here. I got a minute left. Let's see what else we can break down. Here.
He should have run as a Democrat. Why do I say that? What's he polled? Now,
on
the Cornel West front, look, he should have run as a Democrat.
Here we go.
You guys don't want that to happen. So I'd love to ask Cornel West, what exactly are you doing here? Now, if he was going to run, he should have run as a Democrat. Why do I say that? What's he polling at now? 1%?
He should have run as a Democrat. The reason, the only logical reason, JB, I can think of somebody literally advocating for Cornel West to run as a Democrat is that they want the Democratic Party to shut that campaign down. There's no other reason. It's rigged. You can't say in many videos it's rigged and then say Cornel West run here. You're essentially saying you want him to run because you want it to be rigged against him. And if he stays in the Green Party, it won't. I can't read that any other way. And I love the captions that was put on here and I believe it was Post Duopolis. And I think their name is Dirtbag, something like that.
Dirtbag
on Twitter. Blood. Yeah, there we go. I think he's the one who put this video out, but let's finish a little more, JB.
Now, if he was going to run, he should have run as a Democrat. Why do I say that? What's he polling at now? 1%?
Four times that.
4% actually in the general, and you see how it's in bold general, because 4% of a general is a lot more than 10% of a primary. You understand? 4% of over 100 million people that can vote is different than 10% of 70 million people that can vote. It's a different dynamic. So let's continue.
Well, Marianne Williamson is barely getting any media coverage, and she's still at 10% or more.
Look at the point made here. 10% in the rigged primary, she has no chance of winning. This is the point that I was making earlier, JB, is that they love to use a viability argument. Third party's not viable. A progressive Democrat is not viable in a rigged election. If it's rigged, by definition, no other pathways can be viable except the rigged pathway. So that's the problem, Kyle Kulinski and Marianne Williamson. 10% in a rigged game means what? Nothing to me. But we can continue. You just let me know, JB, whenever you want to chime in, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So she's at 10 times what Cornel West is, simply because she decided to run as a Democrat. So I don't know what the strategy is. If you don't have ranked choice voting, if you don't get rid of first past the post voting, you're just doing a virtue signal fest. That's all it is.
A virtual signal fest. It's so ironic. A lot of these videos, and Nick and I was talking about this during the breakdown of the Crystal video. It's so ironic that what they're talking about is literally describing them. Like it's literally describing themselves, and I'll show you what I mean. Let's listen to this last part again.
If you don't get rid of first past the post voting, you're just doing a virtue signal fest. That's all it is. If you actually want,
isn't the Marianne Williamson campaign a virtual signal fest? She's making no attempts to gain ballot access for a primary.
She won't even do a dirty break. What in the hell is he talking about?
That's what I'm trying to get to, JB. I don't get it. The ability that is a Democrat, though. He's showing his Democratic share. The ability to talk about somebody else's shit don't stink stinking when you got some dirty draws. Like the ability to have that hypocrisy and proudly sort of display that. It's grand to me, JB. It's grand.
But CJ, hang on. Let me answer this question for me. What policies of Dr. Cornel West did Kyle Kulinski go over to prove that people should not be voting for him or he should be running?
Nothing. It's not a policy thing.
No. That being the case, right? If it's not about policy, then that means it's about party. And if it's only about party, that means he cares more about party than he does about policy. Because ultimately, how many subscribers does Kyle Kulinski have? He has over 1 million, right?
Over 1 million, I know for sure. Yeah. I don't know where it's at exactly, but over 1 million.
Breaking Points is somewhere north of 800,000. Then you probably have close to 1 million with these people, they share, including TY, north of about 8 to 9 million. And then they will say that a third party candidate is not.
Uh-oh, JB, if you can hear me, you're paused. I don't know if you can hear me, but you are frozen, sir. If you can hear me, JB, you're frozen. So I'll go ahead and pick it up from here.
Okay, am I back?
Okay, now you're back. There you go. All right, so okay. I hope could you hear me say you're frozen? Could you hear me say all of that?
So they literally have.
Go ahead.
Okay, so they literally have the platform to bring him on and to make him more known and viable. Just like Joe Biden has the corporate media to prop him up, Dr. West could have the independent media to prop him up in order to put him out there for the people and not necessarily be a media arm, but to put the information out there so that they can make an informed decision, which is what RBN is doing, which is what other channels have done, right? They can also do the same thing and say, look, I support Marianne Williamson, but here's Dr. Cornel, and here's what his policy choices. You guys can make an informed decision based on what he's doing. but they choose not to. They're no better than the corporate media because they're trying to shield and trying to basically suppress a third-party candidate when they could actually just bring it to the people instead. So I see somebody like Kyle as no different than a Chuck Todd or a name somebody on Fox News. I see them no different because it's going to be, what's the point? He's just going to hurt the left, when in reality, he actually has better positions than an RFK, a Marianne Williamson, or Joe Biden. So what is it about? And then he's going to go, well, we just need to stop Donald Trump. But we've already shown that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are basically the same person, just one has more orange makeup on the other. So if that's the case, then why are we going to be hand-wringing about choosing between dying by fire or dying by drowning? How about we just don't die at all?
I'm with that.
I like
I'm with preserving life. Yeah, I like my life. I like to my family. I like it. Yeah. So, let me just read a couple of super chats because they are pertaining to the story, so they wouldn't be off topic. But let's go through some of the super chats. We're not leaving the topic, everybody. I know we still have like 30 seconds of the video. Don't worry, but some of these do pertain to the topic, and it's a good pause point right here. Thank you, Biden71, always showing love and all of the lathe spaces on YouTube. This one from Super Seamstress Sewing Show. Haven't seen you in a long time, since yesterday, but before that I hadn't seen you on here in a while. But taking no prisoners, thanks RBN. Hope peeps awaken. And we do too. Thank you for that. Here's Janice. She gives us a couple here. Oops. I thought I clicked it. There it goes now. Janice says, who wants a relationship with... Did I unclick it again? My bad, everybody. Now, okay, my bad. Who wants a relationship with the Dems? They are all right-wing, warmongering, strike-breaking psychopaths. Kyle can F all the way off. I love it. Thank you, Janice, for that super chat. I couldn't say it better myself. This one right here, JB, Slim Shady husband, LOL. That was a good one, JB. And I think that's J.H. Scott. I think that's how you say that. And then one more from Janice. I think this one's also on topic. Oops. Also on topic here. My computer's a little slow, so good. We're going to take pride in their loss, and this is how we would want to feel. Let them blame us all they want. We push back with the actual numbers of registered Dems voting for GOP. And I'll just read this other one from Janice since it's here. First past the post is a lie. There is no post. It is something they like to use all the time. Go ahead, JB.
When it comes to fire, what's better, gasoline or alcohol?
Keeping it going? Man, that's I don't know. That's gasoline, alcohol. Okay. I don't know.
All right, so if you look at gasoline and alcohol, gasoline is a colorless. It's a colorless liquid, right? Mm-hmm. Alcohol is also a colorless liquid, right? People on the right will look at Trump like gasoline and think he's water. People in the Democratic circles will look at Biden like alcohol and think it's clear like water, and they'll think it's water. We're sitting here smelling them both and going, that's gasoline, that's alcohol. And we're in a burning building. If you throw either one of these on a fire, we're all fucked. So why are we choosing between gasoline and alcohol in a burning building?
That is a great analogy.
So, and we're trying to go with water. Now, that water may be a smaller cup, right? but it's still water. So therefore, what in the world are we doing trying to choose between, oh, well, the alcohol is better than the gasoline. Oh, the gasoline is better than the alcohol. No, motherfucker, get the water.
That's a great analogy.
And that's why everybody needs to just sit down and look at the policies and how we've been screwed over the last 40 years from both parties. Because Donald Trump's no better than George W. Bush. Joe Biden is no better than Bill Clinton. Because guess what? We all hate them. We hate George W. Bush and Bill Clinton. Why? Why? Because look at our lives now. You don't think that Donald Trump is just a respawn George W. Bush, and then Joe Biden's just a respawn Bill Clinton, and they're all basically a respawn of Ronald Reagan.
And that's what almost every president, that's what they look to is the Ronald Reagan model. And that's not good when they're openly doing that. I wish more people understood how that's not a good hero to have. It doesn't seem like a lot of people do, but let's finish this 30 seconds. Let's see what he says here. Actually, I'll back it up a few seconds just to say. And shout out to Nick. I saw Nick in the comments. I don't know if I saw Sabby, but I saw Nick in the comments.
Nick was in the comments.
Shout out to Nick. Yeah.
Ranked choice voting. If you don't get rid of first past the post voting, you're just doing a virtue signal fest. That's all it is. If you actually want to win, if you actually care about getting the country to change for the better, there's an intelligent way to do that, and not a way that
he's been very condescending. He started out, he says the intelligent way. He understands. He's talking to Dr. Cornel West, the guy with several degrees hired to him from some of the best schools on, or considered the best schools. I'm not going to say I'm calling it the best school, but they're considered some of the best schools on the planet in Yale and Harvard and Princeton. Yeah. He's telling that guy the intelligent way has to do something. Okay, Fred from Scooby-Doo. Let's listen to the rest of this here.
That self-disenfranchises you from being taken seriously.
Now, what he means by self-disenfranchise, he's talking about relational harm. Because he's saying you're disenfranchising yourself. You're messing up your own relationships with Democratic leadership. You're disenfranchising yourself. Ridiculous.
Wait, we're already disenfranchised, though. My question is, how in the world is he disenfranchised? Right? Like, he literally does not belong to any marginalized group whatsoever. None. Kyle's not even a redhead. So why about being part of a disenfranchised group?
Redheads are disenfranchised. Gross. He's not even a redhead.
Because, some people don't have that much love for redheads. Just to let y'all know, I got love for redheads. By the way, anyway, I'm gonna get thirsty on here. But
one of my daughter's name is Ginger. It's not because she's redhead. It's just I like the name Ginger. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah,
it's a good name. You know, I put ginger in my tea. Great. Yeah, great for you. But my thing is like, why in the world is he talking about? Oh, well, you're going to be more disenfranchised. It's like, bruh. Where have you been? Like, you're not even that disenfranchised. How are you going to tell us what is good and better for us when in reality we know what's better for us? And we're literally trying to get out of it because we noticed that it has been working. Like, this is the time where somebody like him needs to not censor himself and actually go to the people who are really the most disenfranchised and go, what would be the best course of action for us? Because, these corporate Democrats aren't good for us and these Republicans aren't good for us. Is it better to go progressive or is it better to go outside? And the funny part is, Kyle actually knows the answer to all of these questions. He just, never mind. Because if I say it again, it's just gonna, I don't know. But y'all know what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So let's let me see if we can get through it. I told you guys it was gonna be hard. Let's go.
So I don't know what he's thinking. I would love to ask him, like, what exactly is the goal here? Is the goal to get to 5%?
Y'all don't have them on.
Does he?
Let me read this here. Yes, jackass, and to build a movement instead of being a sheepdog for the Democratic Party. I can just read the caption because this is great analysis. With the caption, it's the same thing that I was gonna say. And the professional managerial class, like it is like you know how you have a dog whistle that we can't hear.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like building a revolution. Any talk of that is like a dog whistle to them. They don't hear any of that. They don't hear nothing of it. Because you mean to tell me Kyle has never heard of using a third party as building a movement? Like, you don't know that? So either he hasn't heard it, and that means he's in circles where he's not going to hear it, or he's heard it and he disregards it, meaning he doesn't accept it as legal tender for cash, for money. You get what I'm saying? They don't see movement building as a thing. That's why they don't really respect mutual aid. They don't see it as a thing, because what Cornel West would say, if I may speak for him for right now, because he just sort of answered this question a couple of days ago when we had him on here. He's here for the long run. Mm-hmm. He's here for the movement. He's here for freedom and liberation. He's here to see it through, not just pontificate about it, Kyle. Mm-hmm. He wants to actually see Palestinians gain freedom and stop being living under oppression. Mm-hmm. He wants to actually see that materialize. You're not interested in that. It's just a far off sort of thing you talk about. So he wants to build a movement, Kyle, and building outside of the two capitalist parties is one good first step, and it has to start somewhere. Every 4 years, there's going to be a reason not to build a movement.
Yep.
Every 4 years, there's a reason not to. Go ahead, JB.
Let me ask you this: how many times because he said I would like to ask him. Okay, ask him. How many times has RFK Jr. been on Breaking Points? 2 times. They've even had on Vivek Ramaswamy. They've had on Marianne Williamson. So my question is, all right, then ask him. Have him on. Kyle, look, how many times have we had on RBN had Dr. West on? We've had him on, 5, 6, 7 times? Right? In the last few weeks? Yeah. Right? We've had him on constantly. And we're way smaller. And he answers his email, comes on. Why hasn't Kyle had him on? Why hasn't Crystal had him on since his running? This tells you everything you need to know. Sometimes you need to also consider what people aren't saying and aren't doing, because that screams very loudly. And so he's trying to discourage Dr. West from running, but yet he won't have him on to actually get the reasons of the why for the questions that he's asking right now. What does that tell you? I remember there once was a young man named JB, and JB was following Bernie Sanders back in the day. And one thing that JB remembers is that during Bernie Sanders in 2020, when he was running his campaign, MSNBC would always talk about Bernie Sanders in a negative way, but they would never have him on. What does that remind me of now? Could it be that somebody like Crystal and Kyle won't have him on because if they give him a chance to speak, it may move their audience to go in the direction that they don't want them to go?
Word. That's it.
Okay, anybody, clip this, send this to Crystal and Kyle. If you really want to challenge Dr. West about him running, and if you don't think that is good for him, have him on and then put it out there as soon as you have that interview with him, and let people watch, and let Dr. West answer exactly why you don't think he should be running, and let him answer why he should run. And do that. Have him on. Same thing to Sam Cedar. Same thing to TYT. Have them on. Clip this. Any one of you. I don't care. Clip this and put that out to them and see if they do. And if they don't have them on, that tells you everything you need to know. Challenge to all of you. The ball is in your court.
They are behaving just like a corporate entity. Like they're behaving just like it, like they don't want to have him on because of wow, that's amazing. That's a great point, JB. I think it's 10 seconds. 9 seconds. Let's listen and see what other. Yeah, let's see if we can make it 9 seconds.
Does he understand that the only way the Green Party or the Libertarian Party or any of these other parties would be viable is if you get ranked choice voting first? Does he understand that? I don't know.
Does he understand that? Like it to me, it's very. It seems very disrespectful the way he's talking, as if Cornel West doesn't have agency, like he doesn't know what's going on, like he doesn't know these sort of ideas. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's coming off very very sort of condescending, and it's weird because I mean, who would think that you are a tenth of intelligence that Cornel West does. Nobody in their right mind would think that, Kyle. But that's where we'll end it. Oh, no, let me give you, JB, any final words on this segment. I'm gonna I didn't just stay on this for an hour, but hey, it was worth it because we got in some good points. But go ahead, JB. Any final words on this segment?
Sure. He keeps talking about ranked choice voting, but how are we going to get that through the Democrats? Because whenever there's an option to put in ranked choice voting, right, then what happens? The duopoly kills it. The duopoly doesn't want it, and the Democrats don't want it. The Democrats rig their elections just like the Republicans rig elections. So how are we supposed to do that? It sounds as if the only option that we have is actually to run third party anyway. I mean, because the time to do what's right is always right, right?
That's what it sounds like to me, JB.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it sounds like to me. But anyway, we belabored the point. Let's move on to some couple of quick segments. That was our long one. Again, JB, this was unplanned and it took up half the show already. This segment fell in my lap. It wasn't one of the ones I planned, but I'm glad we covered it because there was a lot in there that needs to be addressed. And for those people who say, why do you guys, spend time on this is like revolutionary tactics 101 to dispel propaganda. Like this is what we should be doing is going out and putting out counters to such just terrible critiques and propaganda. So we're just going to do a couple of quick segments. And like I said, JB, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. I love that you showed up because you and I rarely get time to work together, just the two of us. So let's get to this segment. Mitch freezes.
Don't do this to me, CJ. Don't do this.
Yes.
No, not again.
So to start us out, 45-second video. Let's start us out with just talking about what we're talking about. So if you did, just to catch you up, Mitch McConnell had an episode before where he was speaking in front of cameras and he literally froze. He froze. He wasn't speaking. It was just a blank stare, not moving, and in the middle of speaking. So that's what we got to remember. He's speaking, and then he just all of a sudden stops and never begins to talk again. He had to be walked off out of that press conference. Anyway, fast forward 2 weeks later, roughly, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, it happens again, and it happened 2 days ago, and here it is here.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's right.
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
Y'all see his eyes? Y'all see his eyes, man? That is an eyes of a person. Like, there's several different elements that may fall in, but the one that I know is a relative that has dementia, and that's what that looks like. It's a vacant stare where almost like they're not even recognizing what's in front of them. It's just a look, because what's in front of them is not what's going on in their head. So, and they're trying to tell us we are being ran by a geriatric government that are making decisions that they don't care about, that's going to affect 20 years ago, because they're not going to be here. Do you think, the vast majority of people in Congress being 60, 70 plus years old, you think that has anything to do with the lack of progress on climate action? If they're not living another 40, 50 years, what do they care about climate? What are they going to care? So I'll let it finish out, and then we'll comment a little more. And then Kate Johnstone has a great breakdown with humor, as she always does, and we'll get to that. So let's finish out another 25 seconds here.
All right, I'm sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute.
A minute. Man. Is that the Secret Service?
Okay.
Somebody else have a question? Please speak up.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for.
I mean, before the blank stare, listen to what he's saying. He's already not here, JB. It's not the beginning. The blank stare is not the beginning of him being out of it. Listen to what the very first thing he says.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election.
He says, "What am I talking about?" He says, "What am I talking about, JB?" Then we have Dianne Feinstein. What is this, man? What is this? Like, my mom is up there in age. She doesn't have these mental. So I would be fine with her doing this. So it's not necessarily the age, but clearly you have something wrong with you. This should be an immediate retirement. So we're supposed to think that now he's going to go forward making good decisions, JB? That's what we're supposed to think now? And this is almost abuse. This is almost abuse, JB. Go ahead, sir, if you want to chime in. This is almost abuse.
You're right. The levers of government should not be pulled by someone who can't even make it through their next sentence. You're literally putting all of our lives at risk. Let me ask everybody who is watching right now this question. If this man pulled up as the pilot of a plane,
oh Lord,
would you trust him to pilot the plane that you're on? If you answer yes, you deserve whatever the fuck you get. The thing is that it is obvious that he needs to step down. The problem is that with many people in his generation, not all, but many, is that they're trying to drive this country to a direction that they want. And they know that if anybody who is significantly younger gets behind that wheel, it's going to go left. And if it goes left, then the power that they set up for themselves and their younger generations will diminish. So he has to keep hold of that joystick, or that stick, as long as he possibly can. Death be damned. And he'll basically be like, you can pry this joystick from my cold, dead hands. And we're just like, it's going to be happening soon, so we'll pry it. I didn't mean that as a joke, but that's the thing. Like, he is literally sundowning before our very eyes. Right? And so this is why it is important for us to keep the fight going and to teach the younger generation. Because as we see, the people who are on the corporate dictators, they're getting very nervous right now because their managers like Mitch McConnell, Joe Biden, and eventually Donald Trump, they're going to be so old that they cannot keep the system intact. And they're trying to recruit people who are younger. But even then, you have people who are younger that are maybe starting to go, well, things aren't the way that they should have went. You guys weren't exactly that right. Reagan wasn't the best as we used to think he was. So it's happening. Yeah. So, but yeah, as far as Mitch McConnell goes, yeah, that is abuse in my view. And it's not even that, you know, like if he was as sharp as, like, say, a Bernie, this wouldn't be an issue.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. I was reading something. Yeah, so let me show you this. So this is what Caitlin Johnstone put together. I'm sorry. Oh, that's why, because I was like, wait, I wasn't hearing anything. So my bad, I couldn't.
I'm sorry.
So why don't you repeat what you said? So obviously it was a glitch there because I didn't hear any of what you were saying.
No, I said what she wrote was brilliant. I can't wait to see it again.
Oh yeah, here. Do I? Is it? Yeah, this is what I'm already sharing. So this is Caitlin Johnstone. What she does is she writes about it and then she has it translated into she has somebody reads her articles and she puts video to it. So this is her article being read.
Mitch McConnell's brief flash of humanity. Mitch McConnell just froze up again in public, the second such incident in the last few weeks. He just stood there silently, a gentle, childlike smile flickering across his face, probably for the first time since the Truman administration. In that moment, while Mitch McConnell's dying brain struggled and failed to make sense of its present reality, all the dourness was gone from his face, all the downward gravitational pull from a lifetime in the DC swamp, all the seriousness, all the scheming.
His face doesn't look as droopy right there. That is true. That's true.
In that moment of amnesiac innocence, you'd never be able to tell from looking at Mitch McConnell how many people he's helped kill, how much suffering he's helped cause, how much health and thriving he's frozen out of humanity in his joyless facilitation of corporate dystopia. All you'd see is a man. A cute, harmless, befuddled old man. All the dark, dense, contracted energy gone from his form in a sweet, tender moment of intimate indivisibility. Capitol Hill is where warmongers and principals go to die. It's an assisted living facility for psychopaths. A nursing home where people who receive sexual gratification from
assisted living facility for psychopaths. I'm so alive. I'm so glad Caitlin Johnstone's alive when I'm alive. I'm glad I'm around when she's around because she has just a great ability of sarcasm and humor to add to this. It is so beautiful how she marries humor to her analysis of the empire. Is great.
God bless that woman.
Yes. So I rewinded a little bit because I want to hear that again, and then I'll stop. We're not going to listen to this whole thing, and then I'll stop it because I love this description here. So let's listen.
Home where people who receive sexual gratification.
Oops, sorry. Let me rewind a little more.
Capitol Hill is where warmongers and principals go to die. It's an assisted living facility for psychopaths. A nursing home where people who receive sexual gratification from dropping military explosives on foreigners go to wait for their decomposition. The whole place smells like night terrors and urine. Capitol Hill is a gerontocratic command center where miserable octogenarians in wheelchairs and adult diapers keep pulling the levers of ecocide and nuclear brinkmanship like retirees at a Vegas slot machine as a final fuck you to younger generations who are still capable of enjoying life on this planet. It's where they warehouse souls too atrophied and mummified to take a stand against the empire in order to give Americans the illusion of living in a democracy. Joe Biden called McConnell his good friend, and of course they are good friends. They are the same kind of monster. The same kind of spent, half-dead beltway flotsam made of corporate logos and plastic donor-class dinner parties, held together by nothing but Aricept and wood glue, who've been pushing war, militarism, austerity, and authoritarianism since the instant they were able to claw their way into elected office. This is the hub of the global empire. This is what it looks like. Corrupt, decrepit, blood-spattered, shitting itself. And then Hollywood perception managers come in and dress it up as something pretty. But it all faded away in that one moment of neurological misfire. Not even a distant memory as colors, sounds, and feelings swirled ineffably in McConnell's bewildered mind. Perhaps one day this will happen to the entire empire. The whole thing suddenly vanishing for the lie it always was. All its managers left blinking stupidly in the sunlight, reaching for tools that aren't there anymore and word magic that no longer has any power. Perhaps one day all the illusions will disappear like the network of conceptual constructs in Mitch McConnell's head. Perhaps one day the empire will call upon its servants and no one will answer, and it will be left there anxiously repeating the call, like an actor trapped on stage, repeating a line from the script, awaiting a fellow cast member who missed their cue.
I think that's it. Yeah. So, man, so it turns out somebody in the comments says the male voice is her husband that reads her articles. So they're kind of work as a team on that. They do great work. I'm gonna start playing more of her funny articles depending on the subject. I wanted this to be because I don't want to make fun of people who have mental problems, and that's not what we're doing. We wanted to, but we were fine with making fun of the ruling class who is bringing so much death and destruction to so many people. So this is a critique and a fun segment about Mitch McConnell and other ruling class geriatrics. Any final statements on this before we go to the next topic, sir?
Yes, I just want to kind of expand a little bit of what you just said.
Yes, go ahead.
At the end of Star Wars, when the Death Star is blown up, we all cheer. This is the same thing. The thing is that people say, well, this is real life and this is a real person. And I'm like, yes, this is a real person that has actually took place and took part in the suffering and devastation of many innocent people across the world. So when someone like this is getting their comeuppance, this is more of what I think the German word is was it Schadenfreude? Basically, yeah. Basically meaning that you're taking the light in the comeuppance of someone who has caused suffering to countless people. Because that person, yes, Schadenfreude. Because someone like Mitch McConnell has been a part of the suffering of many people across the world. It is not going to be that much different when Joe Biden kicks the bucket. The only difference is a lot more people who are going to be cheering are going to be black. Same thing with George W. Bush. A lot of Muslims are going to be cheering. How many people cheered when Queen Elizabeth died? Because she was also somebody who caused a countless amount of suffering in the world. So this is why, Schadenfreude, thank you so much. But this is why some of us were laughing. Because I wasn't laughing at the fact of the cognitive decline. My grandmother had cognitive decline before she died, right? Mm. There's no laughing matter. I would rather her still be alive and instead of somebody who contributes to the suffering of other people. So that's the thing. It's, it's that the light in an evil disappearing from our eyes.
Thanks, JB. And that's a great way to sum up that last segment. And we'll move right into the next segment. Like I said, we're doing these quick segments. These are, Nick and I have these times, and I'm sure you do too, JB, where it's just certain stories we never get to. So today I'm doing all the stories I haven't been able to get to, besides the Kyle story was the only new one. So, for example, the other story I was not able to get to recently, and I had to push it back a couple of times, that's the Grayzone and their GoFundMe account being frozen. So let's get to that topic now, and I'll bring up my bookmarks here. So Grayzone's GoFundMe was targeted. They've been recently trying to raise money so they can bring on a few more reporters. I know Wyatt Reed was going to be one of them, and Wyatt Reed, shout out to Wyatt Reed because he's been on the network many times. Mm-hmm. And I forget the name of the other person, but let's let friend of the show, Nico House, sum it up, and then we'll get some more details here. But we'll let Nico House in this little short video sum up. Oops. Hang on a second here. Now that I have it, now I can share it. My bad, everybody. Now I got it up. Now I can share it. All right. So let's let Nico House break down the fundamentals of what's going on or what has happened here.
Raised over $90,000 for their investigative work. GoFundMe cited external concerns as to why they ultimately chose to freeze the Grayzone's fundraiser. Now, personally, I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would be willing to bet that those external concerns rhyme with CIA, especially considering that this isn't even the first time that Grayzone's team members have been heckled by big tech and government entities for their investigative reporting. For example, upon entering London, Kate Clarenberg was interrogated for 5 hours by counterterrorism police about the Grayzone. Then there was a time that the managing editor of the Grayzone reported on Ukraine targeting civilians in the Donbass region, and as a reward for his stellar investigative journalism, PayPal and Venmo permanently deactivated his accounts without any real explanation as to why. As most of you probably know, this isn't even the first time that GoFundMe is engaged in these antics. We can look at what they did to Mint Press, or the time that they took millions of dollars from the truckers that were striking in Canada, and just decided they were going to keep the money. GoFundMe is simply proving once again that it is just another establishment, big tech asset who is tasked with censoring anyone who dared to tell the truth about the empire.
And this is the critique, JB, that a lot of people who believe in the great reset, the fear, and not people who don't. Digitizing where we only have digital money, this is what they can do. They can just say, "Oh, we don't like what you did. We're yanking that away," and that is a tool that an empire like the United States will, in my opinion, will not hesitate to use on its own people that's just trying to gain freedom and liberation. So, it is what it is. But let's go to a couple of other receipts. Had you heard about this story before today, JB?
GoFundMe decided to freeze the fundraiser.
Pause that. There you go.
Yeah, I heard about it a couple of days ago. Shout out to the Grayzone. I've had Wyatt Reed on before. I'm trying to reach out to Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, and others that are part of the Grayzone as well to have them on my channel too. But what's going on with them? And as full disclosure, I have a GoFundMe just to help me out with my expenses because I receive disability, and disability is just not enough for me to survive on with my mom.
Of course not. Yes.
But the problem is that this is no different than what we saw in the Twitter files, right? Where you have government overreach that are suspending and stopping people who are actually talking and reporting on what the empire is actually doing. So this is the same thing. The only difference is this is one's taking our voice away, which is the Twitter files. One's interfering with our livelihood and our ability to survive. Because outside of PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, GoFundMe, like what else is there? There's maybe smaller ones, maybe like Gifts and Go.
Yeah,
things like that. But these are a lot more lesser known. So people don't really know or even trust them enough to give through those platforms, which also diminishes the amount of support that a network like Grayzone or an outlet like Grayzone or RBN, because we also have a GoFundMe, it diminishes the amount that we can actually get. This is one of the reasons why I was kind of hesitant in making a GoFundMe for my chapter.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, what if, we raised this amount of money and then next thing you know, they're like, oh, we don't like what you guys are doing at RBN, so we're just going to suspend it. So then the plans that we have to help the people in the community, it goes up in smoke.
Just goes on.
Yep.
Man. We'll hear directly from the man himself, and that is Max Blumenthal here in this little snippet, and let him get the last word, and we'll move to the next segment. Let's listen to what he says happened in the chronological order. It's only a 3-minute video, but we'll listen to all of it.
GoFundMe has informed me like 9 days ago that due to some external concerns, they have frozen the funds. And I published that full email from someone named Sabrina, I don't even know her full name, at GoFundMe's ironically named Trust and Safety Team, telling me that they had frozen the funds and that they need to investigate further. And I haven't heard anything since. I've sent several requests for, due process, or more information, or to just simply release the funds, and I haven't heard anything back. So today we've decided we have to pull the plug on this GoFundMe fundraiser that was so important to building the future of our independent outlet, and which was obviously important to so many other people. I mean, the encouraging, effusively supportive messages we've been getting just keep rolling in.
So this to me makes Grayzones feel a lot more legitimate. If the CIA, if the powers that be are trying to not have Grayzone add more reporters so they can continue to do these anti-imperialist sort of reporting that they do. That's good for imperialists. So this to me gives the Grayzone more validity, because I don't see them going after Jacobin in this way. I don't see them, going after the lever in this way, but they're going after the Grayzone because specifically of their international and foreign policy reporting. So yeah, it's sort of like street cred, gives them more street cred.
And GoFundMe has proven to be exactly what people said it was, which is a tool of Western intelligence agencies and the censorship industrial complex that has been censoring social media. They've put financial sanctions on us because we have disrupted the official narrative around the Ukraine war and so many other of the national security state's psychological operations. That's what this is about. Those are the external concerns. I'm never going to get the information on who they are, but we know who they are. They're the same people that detained and interrogated Kit Clarenberg, who we are fundraising for at Luton International Airport in London, over his work for the Grayzone. The British counter-terror police interrogated him about his work for us, his factual journalism for us. No one has ever discounted a single thing he's reported. They're the same people who cut our new managing editor, Wyatt Reed, who we're fundraising for, off from Venmo and PayPal without any explanation after he went to Donbass and showed on video the Ukrainian military shelling civilian targets and abusing people's human rights. They're the same people who canceled me and Aaron Mate when we went to talk about our work at the Grayzone at Web Summit in Portugal, the biggest gathering of the tech industry. Those people were the Zelenskys. Vladimir Zelensky and his wife personally demanded that they cut us off there so they could broker weapons deals with different tech companies. So that's who we're up against. That's who GoFundMe answers to. And we are asking everyone to demand a refund. We're going to work on getting everyone's money refunded. And we've moved our fundraiser to Spot Fund. You can find out about that on the grayzone.com, on my Twitter account, on the Grayzone's Twitter account. Their co-founder has promised us speedy transfer of funds and that they're not going to kick us off because of outside interference. But what we're looking at here is part of a much bigger picture where the Western regime that is sanctioning 1/3 of the world's population is now sanctioning its own citizens.
Sanctioning its own citizens, which is quite disturbing. And I mean, it's not surprising at all that this is happening to the Grayzone. It's not surprising. You see what happened to Roger Waters, and Roger Waters was a major donor. We did a story and a segment on that. I think one of his donations was like 30 grand. That was the last segment we did on that. And they don't like Roger Waters too. You see the anti-Semitic trope campaign that's going against him. So these powers that be, they don't play with their narratives. They don't play at all, JB, especially with their war narrative. If you're talking against their war narrative, because that is their biggest money maker, they're not playing around at all. Any final comments on this, and then we'll skip to the next story, JB.
No, the only thing I need to say is that we just need to remain vigilant in telling the truth. And whenever you see outlets that are in independent media, this is why your financial support is so important. So, for instance, if you have like a Grayzone, or if you have a Heartlands Media, or if you have like a Due Dissidence or RBN, those of us who are trying to do it the best that we can in independent media, or including the Indie News Network and ones like those, make sure that, to support them if you can, especially through works like Patreon, Coffee, or other different platforms, because the thing is that what they're trying to do is they're trying to starve us out. And also, did you guys like the stream? Because that pushes us out in the algorithm. Same thing. If you go into Grayzone, you go on to their channel, then make sure to like the stream. That pushes them out into the algorithm. Make a comment if on something that you found relevant within the conversation that we're talking about. So that's how you do it. And, share with your family and friends, because a lot of times they may not know the facts that are being put out by outlets like the Grayzone. So make sure to do that as well.
I second that, everything that JB said here. Now let's go to this segment, and it's Glenn Greenwald calls out Mitt Romney over his public display of acknowledging that we're in a proxy war. So let me bring up the tweet here. And this is something Mitt Romney put out himself. Mitt Romney put this out, and let's read, and then I'll play the video. Let me pause it first so it doesn't go too far, and then I have to refresh. All right, so we'll leave it there. All right, so Senator Mitt Romney says the single most important thing we can do to strengthen America relative to China is to see Russia defeated in Ukraine. A weakened Russia detours this is China's, and that's what they're doing, the CCP, is the China Communist Party or something like that, territorial ambition, and halts Putin's vision of reestablishing the old Soviet Union. Supporting Ukraine is in our interests. That's what he says as a caption for this video here, and let's listen.
The single most important thing we can do to strengthen ourselves relative to China is to see Russia defeated in Ukraine, because they're allies, and Russia being weakened weakens their ally China. I mean, so and by the way, being able to take an amount which equals about 5% of our military budget, but actually less than 5% of our military budget each year to help the Ukrainians is about the best national defense spending I think we've ever done. We're losing no lives in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are fighting heroically against Russia that has 1,500 nuclear weapons aimed at us. It's like,
what does it mean to say we're losing no lives? Who is we? Are we on this? This is two things it's showing. He doesn't see us, like the United States doesn't see us as part of the team, as their team. Because if he can say we're losing no lives, how can he say that when Ukrainians are losing lives? But if you're able to say we are losing none, that means you don't see us as part of Ukrainians. You don't even see us as part. They're doing the fighting. That's how you see this, as a proxy. That is by definition a proxy. Somebody else doing the bidding for you.
Yep.
That is a proxy. And then they want to toss in, they're being so courageous. That's why they're trying to describe the Ukrainian fighting as courageous, because they know they're being used as cannon fodder. So had you seen this video before, JB? Had you heard about it or seen the clip?
No, but just to harp on a point that you were making, have you ever seen X-Men: The Last Stand?
I think I have. A lot of them are mixed in.
It's the one where Jean turns into the Phoenix, and
Oh yeah.
And they kill off Professor X and all that. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember in the last final battle where Magneto stops Juggernaut from attacking the people and says, "And chess, the pawns go first." Right? Same thing. In chess, the pawns go first. Who are the Ukrainians that are fighting? They're the pawns. They're the ones that die first. They're the ones that are being made to die just so that the United States can have a war. The thing is that the United States is doing this because they know how much we hate war. They know how unpopular the Iraq war was and the war in Afghanistan. So they've smarted up. They go, well, we're just not going to use our people. We're going to use somebody else's people. And we're going to risk their lives for the sake of us growing our power. So this is the reason for that proxy war between Ukraine and Russia. And so this is basically what Mitt Romney is saying. He is saying and smiling like a game show host, because he looked like one, that, hey, all we have to do is just sacrifice their lives and no blood lost on ours.
Man,
that's exploitation, people. That's exactly what it is. And if you care about life in general, then you care about the lives of innocent Ukrainians too, just as much as you care about the lives of innocent Russians and Palestinians and Iraqis. But this shows where Mitt Romney really is.
And it does, and it also shows, it's a reflection of what's ingrained in the United States DNA, and that is how it's in our DNA that we view our lives more than everybody else's. And I don't, and when I say ours, I'm talking about white American lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you start the way we started with genocide against the natives and enslaving the dignified slaves, our ancestors, if you start that way, you know what I mean? Like, you're not ever going to get that out of your DNA. That's why we still have racism 400 years, 500 years, growing on 500 years. That's why you have all of these things still happening. We're just like, we got progress. We're coming a little bit of ways. You know what I mean? That's the reason why we have to describe things that way. Go ahead, JP.
I got one thing to say. And I think you've already connected this in your mind too, but let me know if it connects. Okay, so you know how, and I say this all the time, Black people are the canary in the coal mine. If they're going to do it to us, they're going to do it to white people, right? They're literally exploiting white people in order to fight a proxy war.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. You're white people, you need to be outraged about what the United States is doing in Ukraine. Be outraged. Be anti-imperialist and let the United States know, whoa, you're doing this against us. Because the United States has done it at proxy wars in African countries.
Yeah.
They're basically doing to Europe what they already did to Africa. They're just now graduating to going to, okay, now screw the rest of the poor whites too. So if they did it to us, they're going to do it to you. It's just a matter of time when it's going to happen. You see, here's the thing. 40% of people who are incarcerated in this country are Black, even though we're only 13% of the population. But the other 60% or so are white. And they're also being enslaved because we all know the 13th Amendment, it doesn't end slavery for people who are incarcerated. So now you have white slaves, right? Same thing with war. They did proxy war with us in many different African countries. Now, guess what? They're doing proxy wars in Europe. They're also doing it against white people. Why? Because they look at the people, especially those Eastern Europeans, as white trash. That's exactly what this is. So ultimately, the racism and the xenophobia, it will also pour onto you. This is why it is imperative for you to be anti-racist as well as anti-imperialist. Because if not, they're going to get you too.
Yeah. They're going to get you coming or get you going, JB. All right. All right. So 40 some odd more seconds. Let's listen.
It's like, so we're diminishing and devastating the Russian military for a very small amount of money relative to what we spend in the rest of defense. A weakened Russia is a good thing. It tells China to rethink their territorial ambition. It tells Russia, perhaps most importantly, that the Putin vision of reestablishing the Russian Empire and grabbing the old former Soviet republics, that's not something that's going to work. It is very much in America's national interest, in our national interest, to help Ukraine. And the best thing we can do for America is to see people who have nuclear weapons aimed at us getting weaker.
So much in there. I like their feet kind of dangling, because it gives the stupid, immature child like look of a person when he's dangling his feet as he's talking, because that last part of what he said, JB, it's disgusting. This is really disgusting, and you can hear the white supremacy in this sort of outlook on foreign policy. Go ahead, JB.
CJ, look, I was up with you until you talked about the feet dangling. Listen, I got short legs,
noticed
man.
that.
That's not fair, CJ. How you gonna do that? Now I feel attacked on RBN. Come on, man. Don't do that to me. I got short legs, man. Why you gotta do that to me?
Funny.
Just because you're tall.
I'm not tall.
You ain't tall. Don't do that. Why you gotta do that to me, brother? I thought over here, bro. Right.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny because he was dangling his feet at certain points to where it was like, man, you're saying some of the most ridiculous stuff right now. So thought that was funny. But here's Glenn Greenwald, and why I said this segment is called Glenn Greenwald Crushes. I think it says crushes Mitt. Let's see what Glenn chimes in about. He quote tweets Mitt, and he says, as it is true of John Bolton, Senator Mitt Romney has been and continues to be one of DC's most vocal, steadfast, enthusiastic supporters of Joe Biden's war policies in Ukraine. Every GOP candidate on last week's stage, except Vivek and DeSantis, expressed the same support. And this is why it's sort of it's an issue in the GOP, because their three top candidates, polling wise, all are talking against the Ukraine war. This is why, to me, I think this is another reason why they kind of stepped up their game against Trump, because even though I don't believe he's going to go through with it. I think he's just as bad as a warmonger as the Democrats. It's just that he's talking the talk the same way he did when he was talking to talk about fighting against the swamp monsters before he got elected. He did that. He sells the populism, and he's doing it now. And JB, let me go through a couple of comments, and then I'll get your comments. Here's Max Blumenthal commenting on the same video, and Max says, Senator Mitt Romney, and look what he puts. He puts R next to his name. He says Raytheon instead of the name of the state. That's pretty funny. Proclaims, quote, we're losing no lives in Ukraine, end quote. Like the rest of the proxy war's satanic architects, he regards Ukrainians as bullet stoppers whose lives have no value behind ending those Russians. And that's the point that I was making. Vivek actually chimes in, and this is one of the candidates that's against, in his rhetoric, Ukraine funding, and he said this at the debate, the GOP debate. Wrong again, Senator Romney. The single most important thing we can do to strengthen America relative to China is to disband the Russia-China military alliance and reduce our economic dependence on China. Instead, let me expand it. Where was I? Instead, we're driving Russia further into China's hands by the day while Joe Biden sleepwalks us into a major conflict. Sadly, the GOP establishment aids and abets it dailies. I don't know what abets it means in this context. Abets, but yeah, I don't know what that means. I don't think it. Do I have any other? I think that's the only one. Actually, no, let me play this one and then get your comment, because it goes together. So you hear that one where he talks about Cannon Father. He essentially says the same thing here with a little bit difference. That's why I want to add it in before we get your comment. So let's listen to this here.
You have a unique perch in your chair on the Foreign Affairs Committee. President Biden recently asked for more funding for Ukraine, sending more arms and weapons and dollars to Ukraine. Give us an update in terms of where you think we are and what should we be doing to be most helpful in that space.
Well, I begin by saying that instead of thinking about, well, if Biden requests it, it must be wrong. There's my team and his team.
Yeah.
And instead saying what's in the best interest of the national security for the.
Here's the bipartisanship when it comes to war. He's like, come on, guys. Instead of saying it came from Joe Biden, so it can't be good. Come on. This is war. We have our friends at the weapons manufacturers we got to take care of. They're making bombs to kill people that we don't care about. Continue.
For the United States of America. And our biggest global threat over the coming century certainly comes from China. China has one major ally, well, more than one when you consider North Korea, but one major ally, and that's Russia. And so weakening Russia is very much in our interest if we're concerned about China. And of course, Russia itself has 1,500 nuclear warheads aimed at the United States of America. So seeing Russia struggle in Ukraine, having its military.
I'm sorry. I didn't know you were going to say that bullshit.
It's clown shit, and I'm gonna rewind it. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's clown. This is a joke. This is a joke, JB.
Has one major ally, well, more than one when you consider North Korea, but one major ally, and that's Russia. And so weakening Russia is very much in our interest if we're concerned about China. And of course, Russia itself has 1,500 nuclear warheads aimed at the United States of America. So seeing Russia struggle in Ukraine, having its military decimated without any American loss of life,
is not
it's really quite extraordinary. So for the last 2 years, we have been spending about 5% of our military budget by sending weapons to Ukraine to help them in their battle against Russia. It is very much in our interest. We spend about 750 to 800 billion a year on our national defense. That's to protect us from people like Russia. To take 50.
That 800 billion is what's on paper. The reason we never pass audits is because everybody knows the funding is well over $1 trillion off paper.
Also,
on paper is 800. Go ahead.
Just to add to your point, that our nuclear program is actually under the Department of Energy, not the Department of Defense. So when you add on the nuclear program onto the Department of Defense, it's over $1 trillion.
There you go.
50 of that each year and use that to strengthen Ukraine is the smartest thing we could do, and probably the most cost-effective and certainly life-effective way we could weaken someone who has the potential to become an enemy.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I'm so glad you framed it in terms of this is not a red-blue issue. This is a freedom and national security issue, both for...
This is a bipartisan time to where we're going to set aside all of our disagreements and agree to kill millions, or let's say hundreds, if not thousands, of people that we don't care about. And I'm not going to play the entire thing for the sake of time because I've got a couple of more segments I want to get to, important segments I want to get to. But my final sort of brief comment on this to wrap it up, because I said the bulk of what I had to say, but to kind of put a bow on it, what Mitt Romney, what I feel is a indication of a failing empire is how more and more they're just boldly saying things publicly. Boldly saying things publicly that 20 years ago they would not. It's because the old way of them propagandizing people haven't worked. The reason he's saying this, he's trying to convince people we have to still help Ukraine because the public support's not there. Over 50% of the public don't think we should be giving them more money. But they're not going to listen to us. All they're going to do is go on TV and tell us why we got to keep supporting them. This is just shows how this is not a democracy, JB. But any final brief words you had to sum up your thoughts on this, JB?
Absolutely. If you take everything that Mitt Romney said and you turn it on him, you can basically say, well, America has 3,708 nuclear warheads pointing at the rest of the world. So it's imperative for us to actually make sure that the United States doesn't continue its hegemony and control over the world so that we can actually build a better future outside of the strength and the stranglehold that the United States has on the rest of us. They can actually make that argument. And that's literally double the amount of nuclear warheads
crazy
that Russia has. And so they'll talk about, oh, well, it's pointed at other countries. Well, guess what? The United States basically has theirs pointed at everybody else. So it's rules for thee, but not for me. Why? Because he thinks that the United States can do no wrong. Or the United States has, they can just rule carte blanche over the entire world because our way is justified. We have freedom, and liberty, right? Even though that's not really the case. And so when somebody like Mitt Romney goes on these channels and start talking about the threat of Russia or China, like for instance, what is so threatening about China in the first place? Like, what has China actually done to us or the world that is so bad?
It's not a military threat. It's not a military threat.
No, nothing. Because here's the thing. Like, how many bases does China have around the world in comparison to the United States?
I mean, I think they got one or two or a handful. I don't think they got over 5.
I think 3 at the most.
Yeah.
And then the entire thing about the Uyghurs, that's already been debunked. So
yeah,
they can't rely on that. And then they'll be like, well, all of our jobs are there. Well, who gave the jobs away? So what is there? Okay, real shit. The only reason why the United States hates China is because they're jealous. Because China got the bigger dick. That's
pretty much.
That's basically what it is. And they're like, oh my God, we have to kill them. Why? Why? Just because they're doing better financially? Oh, it's because the Communist Party of China, the CPC, is actually doing better for their people than what the United States could under capitalism. Got it. That's it.
And they're big mad. They're big mad about it. So
big mad.
They're big mad. So now let's skip over. Now we have to cover the coup. We have to cover the coup over in Africa. So let's start here. It's another shorter segment. Our brother again, shout out Nico House. He puts together a short snippet, a short video to kind of give you a summation of what's happening, the coup that's happening in Gabon, and that's Gabon. It's pronounced French in a French way, so Gabon is the name of the country. Let's listen here.
France is just having a horrible month as another one of their African puppets was just overthrown, this time in Gabon. That's right. Earlier today, Ali Bongo was overthrown. And as you can see here, the people of Gabon are just all torn up about it. Now, of course, some of you may be wondering, why would the people of Gabon prefer a military junta as opposed to the quote-unquote democracy they may have had before? So Gabon is actually one of the largest exporters of oil in the world. And 50% of that oil is exported to the United States.
Gabon has all this oil, but when I get to the videos of it showing the people of Gabon the streets, why are these some of these, because part of Africa is very well developed, but why are parts of these countries that have these natural resources, why are they so broke? How do you have a resource that everybody wants on the planet? Why aren't the people making billions of dollars off this money, off this natural resource of oil? And they got other ones, JB. This is just one. Nico House is about to tell us about the other ones.
Now,
let's listen. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, JB.
You know the answer to that question. But can please continue.
Yes, I do. So let's listen to some of the other natural resources this country has.
Is actually one of the largest exporters of oil in the world, and 50% of that oil is exported to the United States. Gabon is also the fourth largest exporter of minerals on the planet. Two of those minerals being uranium, which we know France needs, especially given the Coup in Niger situation, and manganese, which has many applications, one of which is acting as a filler for batteries, which we know will be huge given this power struggle that we are seeing come about because of the fourth industrial revolution. So given those facts and the fact that France has at least 110 companies in Gabon, you think that the people of Gabon would be pretty well off, right? Well, at least the former president benefited from it, considering he had 70 bank accounts, 39 apartments, 2 Ferraris, 6 Benzes, 3 Porsches, and a Bugatti in his 42 years of ruling. And the president who was just overthrown is the son of the former president, who has been ruling ever since. So I'm sure he's not too far removed from that life of luxury either. But as for the people of Gabon,
yeah, this is what it looks
like.
Well,
there's about 2.3 million people living there, and 32% of them live in extreme poverty, surviving off of only roughly $5 a day, which is absolutely unacceptable and ridiculous considering the insane amount of natural resources they have at their disposal. It's really starting to look like Africans are fed up with the West. You're either going to do business the right way, or they're going to oust your puppet, and they'll figure it out themselves. Either way, it looks like neocolonialism in Africa is dying, and I, for one, am absolutely here for it.
All right. Crazy. I should be able to go. Hold on, babe. I should be able to go. Okay, sounds good. All right. Sorry, I had to talk to my wife in the middle of a stream. But JB, what say you about this video? I'm not sure if you've seen it before. I love these videos that Nico House does because it's a way of summarizing the story very, very briefly before we get into the details. But what say you? What's your reaction to this video here?
First of all, can we luxuriate on the outfit that Nico has in the video?
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
Very, very power to the people, my brother. But, you know, to your point, yeah, people are tired. And it's funny because when you think about the free market, if the free market means that you dictate and, you know, you dictate the terms of how what you own, how it's operated, then that's basically just like, you know, countries like Gabon, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. They're basically determining the terms of the contract that they have with the Western nations. And they're basically saying, yeah, you're not going to be able to
is just having a
I don't the sound must have started again. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, go ahead, JB. Sorry about that.
A horrible month.
Oh shoot. I guess I gotta turn this off. If you move, it comes back on. Yeah, it keeps coming back on. Go ahead.
But it is basically like me having a store, and then robbers come in, and then they go to my stock room and pull out whatever they want from my stock room without me being able to have a say over what, you know, comes out of my stock room. So now instead, what I did was I got a pit bull, a Rottweiler, I got a security system, and I got a couple of guns. And I'm like, yeah, don't you dare come to my stock room again. Now, if you actually want something from the back of my stock room, you better pony up the dough, bro. And now the robbers are getting mad that they can no longer rob me anymore. Well, it sucks to be you. Now you actually have to work for my shit. Pay me. So that's basically what these countries are saying now. Pay us for our shit.
Yeah. And here's the map. Here, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. And the funny part is they actually are trying to put pipelines through so that they can get the natural gas up into places like France. And now places like Niger are like, yeah, you want that Nigerian natural gas? Yeah, you can't have it because it has to go through our country. And we're done with you. And so now Gabon is like, yeah, if you want our oil, you're gonna have to pay us for that oil. You're gonna have to bring up the, all of us, not just the people who rule over us. And so, yeah. So if you're one of those people who believe in capitalism and believe in the free markets, you should be cheering for this too, because it's literally them exercising their right as a producer of their own resources.
And I just threw up a map real quick, JB. This is Niger here. You can see that in the yellow. If you go south, and you see Nigeria right below Niger, then you see Cameroon. Right down here, you see Gabon, and it's next to the Congo. So just so for reference, for you to know where it's at, and you mentioned some of the other countries. You were just talking about Mali, or talking about some of the other surrounding countries. So we see that. Hang on a second here. Okay, I have to see with my wife. It's one of our daughters has a minimum day, so we're both trying to see which one of us is going to get him, and she's going to get her today. So anyway, so let's show here. Now this is let me read the caption, because this is the guy. He's on house arrest. So just to recap the story, actually let me do that before we get to that. So let me give more information about what's happening. So there's a military coup, and they've taken over the country, and they have the president on house arrest. And this is just a little bit of history about the presidency over there. This Gabon has been ruled by the same family for many decades. It was first his father named Omar, then Ali. Ali is the one who's on house arrest right now. And then he has another son that eventually would be taking it, that will eventually take over also. But let's listen to this report here. They give a little more detail before we get into some of the analysis of this. This is Daniel. He's from Montclair State University.
Gabon has been ruled for 56 years by the same family and the same regime. I don't know if people can imagine the scope of what we're talking about here. Omar Bongo came to power in 1967. He ruled for 42 years. And when he died in 2009, his son took over and has now ruled for 14 years. What that means is that Gabon is today one of only two republics, and I mean non-monarchical republics, to have been ruled for 56 years by the same family and the same regime. And for Americans who are listening here today, 56 years is equal to 9 American presidents under Omar Bongo from
9 American presidents. But this is the way, JB, this is how our government sells democracy to us. Because if you listen to what he's saying, listen, guys, we've been ruled for 56 years by the same, we've been ruled by capitalists. We've been ruled by capital. I'm sorry. It's the dictatorship of capital we've had. Also, what is ingenious about American capitalists, people will get restless if we had the same person overseeing this capitalist dictatorship. They say, so we'll keep the capitalist dictatorship in. We'll just replace the faces. So the people think they're actually have a say, but we're just given the option to replace, by another capitalist warmongering pig. And that's all we're given. So the policy stays the same. We just rotate the representative faces. So we are not that much different as far as how we're ruled by as Gabon. He's just saying we go through 9 U.S. presidents, but it's the same dictatorship of capital that's in the White House.
1963, Lyndon Johnson to Barack Obama. And so the Bongo family has ruled without regard for democracy. All the elections in Gabon have been stolen. And I think that the coup is actually a restitutive coup in a sense that it's actually restituting to the Gabonese nation a voice that will allow them now, perhaps through dialogue, to rebuild after 56 years of what I might call a disaster. And so I tend to believe that we should support the coup leaders in Gabon. This is a type of coup that we should support because it is a result of, it is in fact a reaction to the fact that once more, Ali Bongo, the Bongo family, tried to steal an election. And for once in Gabonese history, well, the military stepped in and have now allowed for the possibility of democratic change in Gabon if we're able to negotiate a peaceful resolution to the crisis.
So I think we have a good sort of backing of what's going on, why it's going on. I do want to sort of dive into who is this family. So here is the Gabon military. They are in the house or the residence of where there's millions of dollars in this video. You see millions. Look at the just stacks of money here. They're confiscating bags, the shit you see in movies. Crazy bags and bags of money that they're seizing from the president or the former president. Deposed is what they call him, the deposed president. So let's give a little more background of the family. Let me take the picture down. I mean to put the picture up by itself. I want to read the caption here. The Bongo family in Gabon was essentially a puppet of France. Gabon was until now effectively a colony of France. The coup in Gabon is similar to the one in Niger, spells trouble for Macron, France, and Europe. Africa is getting rid of imperialists and their puppets, and this is the guy. I'm going to get to his video in just a second here, but this is the guy. And let me give you a little more background of the family. This is just a quick quote I can give you here, I guess, since I'm here. This family sold out the people of Gabon to France for 56 years. They must fall to the deepest crevice of the devil's rectum. That is hatred, because you guys, we always hate a sellout. To the deepest crevice of the devil's rectum is what he said, JB.
Oh my gosh!
And all coons, because that's why it's more of a disdain for a person who is one of you who is selling you out. And so I get the disdain. And here is that president right here. Here is him. And it says, let me stop the video first, and then I'll read the caption. It says, placed under house arrest, deposed Gabonese president Ali Bongo on Dimba, I think that's his name, called on friends around the world to make noise after his country's military seize of power. He confirmed that he was at his residence. The military had reported that he was under house arrest, but also says he has no idea what's happening. The president's plea was posted on the social media networks of local journalists. Ali Bongo is the son of Omar, who was president of Gabon from 1969, JB. Think of this, 1969 until 2009. I'm sorry, 1967 till 2009. Yeah. Since then, Ali Bongo has been in control of an oil-rich African nation, which is part of OPEC. after just winning a majority in yet another disputed election, it seems time at the helm is coming to an end. And here is him speaking in his own words right here.
And I'm to send
Ali
Bongo Ondimba, President of Gabon. And I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, For the people here have arrested me and my family. My son is somewhere, my wife is in another place, and I'm at the residence. Right now, I'm in the residence, and nothing happening. Nothing is happening. I don't know what's going on. So I'm calling you to make noise, really. I'm thanking you. Thank you.
Hey, CJ. What he's not saying is...
sorry. It restarted. Hold on, let me stop it.
And I'm to send a message to...
Go ahead, JB.
He said, he said, he said, my son is somewhere and my wife is in another place. What he failed to say was, my son is somewhere in the house. My wife is in another place in the house. Like, he's trying to make it seem like it's more nefarious. Like, no, we put all your in the house. And they just chilling in the mansion. Like, what are you talking about, man? And then like they are. Look, this man is lucky they didn't do to him what they did to the dog.
They lucky. He is lucky.
He is lucky that he gets to even get house arrest in his own home in that mansion.
Yeah, he is lucky.
Yeah, he is one lucky son of a gun. And so for someone like him to be like, oh, this is basically like somebody who, you know, has been abusive, and then he tries to call all his boys to be like, hey, come help me. They're actually getting back at me for all the abuse I've done.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's like, you know, the United States and France and Germany and all them to come and intervene. Man, I'm telling you right now.
This is just playing this in the background as we talk, so you can see. You see the military there up on the stage on the higher ground, and you see just regular people cheering. Let's pull the sound in and see. They're cheering. They're being received as heroes because this country obviously doesn't want. So we're in a pickle. Because we have coups, we're in a pickle because we have coups, JB, which we are generally against coups. Yeah. But when it's a coup, like, are we against a enslaved coup, like a slave that tries to overthrow a slave plantation owner? Are we against that type of coup? So these coups lately have been drawn into question. Well, what type of coup are we talking about? Here's him with his family, actually. And I know this looks like a white woman. I think she's half, because I've seen another picture of his wife, where she does have a tint of some sort of color that makes her appear that she is of a different race. Here is Richard Medher. Shout out to Richard, friend of the show. You had him on a couple of times. He says, breaking military coup in Gabon. Gabon, like Niger, is a former French colony. This is the 8th coup in 3 years in former French colonies in Africa, JB. I didn't know that until I read this. A total slap in the face of French neocolonialism, aka Francafrica. I don't know what that is. Francafrica. The military have put President Burgon under house arrest, closed the borders, and annulled his election victory. A French spokesman condemned the coup, of course. Wow. Let me see if there's any other receipts. Here's one thing I wanted to show. Military junta in Gabon who took control. I'll read what it says as I play it. No. It's in another language here, but I'll read it.
Force de défense et de sécurité.
On this day, October 30th, we, the Defense Security Forces, meeting with the Committees of Transfer Restoration of the Institution, CTRI, on behalf of the Gabonese people and guarantors of protections of institutions, have decided to defend peace by putting an end to the current regime. The general election of August 26th, as well as the
truncated,
that's what I was trying to get out. Let me rewind it so I can get the full thing out. Truncated results are canceled. Thank you, JB. Let me continue. The borders are closed until further notice. All institutions of the republic are dissolved. Our beautiful country, Gabon, has always been a haven of peace. Today, the country is going through a serious institutional, political, economic, and social crisis. And we have to admit that the organization of the August 26th elections, known as the general election, did not meet the conditions for a transparent ballot. In addition, irresponsible, unpredictable governance has led to a steady deterioration in social cohesion, threatening to drive the country into chaos. Man, serious coup. So what are your thoughts? I don't know if you heard about the story or knew all the details before this segment, but now that we have the details on the table, what do you think about what's happening, what's going on over here in Gabon?
I would think it's crazy if someone like JFK was president up until 2014, and then his son JFK Jr. became president, was president until now. That's basically the equivalent of what has happened, and
that's like a monarch. That's like a monarch, JB.
It is essentially, it's a monarch, just without it being a name, but it's a dynasty. And so having that, when people in regards to what you were saying about coups, is that this sounds like a coup of resistance against oppression,
right?
Rather than a coup that the United States or any other Western nation tries to employ. It's just like with the United States. They will use coups in order to overturn a democratically elected leader in order to place a puppet dictator. But in this case, it's the reverse. It is a puppet dictator that is being ejected, and then they are trying to regain a more cohesive democratic government that is ruled by the people in reality, instead of it being ruled by outside forces that only have certain materialistic goals for outside in regards to their pushing of imperialism. So I mean, look, only time will tell how things go with them, and if they're going to be pushing into a more civilian direction, which is what I hope that they do. I actually had Margaret Kimberly on a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about how she's not a fan of coups, but she hopes that they turn over the government back to civilians in reality, as well as, in word as also in reality. So we'll see. I'm hopeful, but I'm glad to see that somebody who is part of a dynasty is taken out and actually is allowing or opening up the door for more democracy to actually continue in the country.
Yes. And I think JB, we can end that segment there. I don't know how you're doing on time. I do got another segment to do. And that is that's the Joe Biden impeachment. I don't know if people know, but the House GOP is gonna vote on an impeachment soon for Joe Biden. That doesn't, so they're not trying to impeach him per se. They're using the impeachment process to get more information out of their investigation, because they are saying the Biden family is stonewalling any further investigation. So they're saying when you start an impeachment, you get more investigative powers, where a person can't just say, no, I'm not giving you that information. So that's what they want to do. So I do want to cover, this is actually something this story I've been trying to cover for 2 weeks. So a lot of more information, a lot of stuff has been updated since the original time I was going to cover this. And I've gotten that updated information to share with everybody. But let's talk about the impeachment of Joe Biden. And we're going to, in order to talk about that, we have to talk about, well, why is the GOP wanting to impeach him? And it's about some business dealings. And Nico House has been pretty on point with these videos about Joe Biden. He's gotten a bunch of them made, and I pulled 3 of them that pertain to the story that we're talking to today. This is not one of them, but I do want to start with this funny video he made. It's kind of on topic, but it's a funny version of it. So let's watch.
You can leave your cocaine in the library. You can't keep doing it.
So this is Hunter Biden. He's playing out a scene between Hunter Biden and somebody at a library talking to Hunter Biden. So let's listen. It's a joke.
You can leave your cocaine in the library. You can't keep doing it. What do you mean? That wasn't me. How do you know it wasn't? How do you know it wasn't Bo? Could have been Bo, his favorite son. So your brother is no longer alive. So we're pretty sure that he couldn't have been the one to leave the cocaine in the library. Man, see, that's what I'm talking about. That is always clear. Favorites. Like, I did. So I almost messed up his election and left all the corn on that laptop and did a bunch of cocaine in the library. But like, it could have been Bob. Well, you still have some on your nose. So there's that. I don't think this is about your father playing favorites. Your brother's just not alive anymore, so it can't be his. Oh, I get it. So just because Bo's not alive anymore, his ghost is too good to leave cocaine in the library. Why are you sure of? And also your teeth are doing the thing, the cocaine thing. What do you mean? What cocaine thing? I'm fine. I'm cool. I'm all right.
Oh man, that was hilarious.
That
was hilarious.
You leaving your cocaine in the library.
I don't mean to watch it again, but that was freaking hilarious. And that's how we're starting this segment on Biden impeachment. I wanted to start out with a funny sort of funny for the start, but let me scroll to some headlines before we get to these other videos that kind of give us background on, why the impeachment. So let's go to this headline here. This is from Fox News. It says House Republican leaders, House Republican leaders want to launch Biden impeachment inquiry next month, sources say. So they're talking about, they're not wasting any time, JB. And let me pull up the actual headline in the story here. And here it goes. Right here. All right, Fox News. It says House Republican leaders want to launch Biden impeachment inquiry next month, sources say. This was just written 2 days ago. So on Tuesday, where is it? Okay, here we go. Speaker Kevin McCarthy told GOP lawmakers in a members-only conference call on Monday night that an impeachment inquiry is the natural progression from our investigation that has been going on. One Republican who has been granted anonymity to discuss the call said the lawmaker said Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan informed members on an earlier call that McCarthy suggested the House would vote on opening impeachment inquiry next month. So that's September, everybody. This is written in August. They're talking about September. Quote, what Jim Jordan said was that McCarthy told him that it was coming to the floor in September, the lawmaker said. And that's all of the details there I need to show. I'm going to go back to Twitter to kind of finish off this segment of impeachment. And like I said, now we're talking about impeachment, JB. So we go now. The question must be, well, what the hell did Joe Biden do that would warrant, impeachment? And now this is where we have several videos from comrade and friend Nico House about this, and it's right here. And it's several things. So it's several open investigations about Joe Biden, his family, his estate, and maybe in Hunter Biden. So here's one of them, the bribery allegation around Burisma and Ukraine. So here's one of them. Let's listen to this as he sums it up. This is less than a minute. Nico House talking about the bribery case.
Hey, yo, there are bribery allegations involving Joe Biden and Hunter Biden's position on Burisma Energy Company in Ukraine, which is crazy because they were literally reporting in 2019 that there were unsupported accusations that Joe Biden improperly tried to help his son's business interests in Ukraine. But according to the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Joe Biden participated in a $5 million bribery scheme to help his son get an energy job in Ukraine. The chairman even says that Christopher Wray is in contempt because he tried to hide evidence that Joe Biden was trying to commit bribery to help the corruption of the Hunter Biden in Ukraine. Are y'all starting to see the pattern here? I'm starting to see the pattern. Hey, yo, there are bribery allegations involving Joe Biden.
All right, so that's one, and then he breaks it down some more. JB, did you want to? Because I can't see. Did I hear you say something? Do you want to chime in here?
No, you can keep going.
Okay. All right. So here is another one, and this is where he breaks down the conversation, the situation with Hunter Biden's business partner. This is part of the investigation that they're having, that they feel like they're not getting all the information they need, why they need an impeachment inquiry. So let's listen.
Joe Biden is such a fucking liar, bro. Joe Biden claimed that he had never been involved with any of Hunter Biden's business dealings at all, or talked to anyone involving Hunter Biden's business dealings. Survey says that is a lie. In fact, he joined dinners with Hunter Biden's business associates and was on the phone with them on speakerphone at least 20 times. Joe Biden also claimed that he had nothing to do with Hunter Biden being appointed to the board of Burisma, and he had nothing to do with the Ukrainian energy company. Survey says that is also a lie. One of Hunter Biden's best friends and business associates came out and said that Hunter Biden was only invited to sit on the board of Burisma because of the brand he brings, with his father being the vice president. He even takes it a step further and says that Burisma literally wouldn't exist. It would have failed as a business if it wasn't for Joe Biden protecting them. Now, these are just a couple of revelations from the testimony of David Archer yesterday. But the important part is that we recognize how much of a fucking liar Joe Biden is, and I can't believe that people would be okay with this, considering how people reacted to the idea that Trump was doing the same thing. I'm just asking people to keep the same energy, bro.
That's a great point. And
Joe Biden is such a fucking liar, bro.
I don't know how you turn off automatic play, but I obviously have to do that. And now this is the last video. I'm not gonna. Has to do with something else here. So this is the last video from Nico House. This is the whistleblower, the IRS whistleblower. Okay, so foreign affairs. So now this is the China part. So I told you the Ukraine part. I'm just showing all the areas of where they feel like why they need to have this impeachment inquiry to get more information, to go into all these sort of mini investigations that's happening around Joe Biden and his family. Here's another one, 17 million from foreign entities.
Begin to start regarding the revelations that we learned during the IRS whistleblower hearing. Maybe we could talk about the fact that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden used at least 20 different shell companies to funnel $17 million from foreign entities that were paid incrementally into their bank accounts over time. Money that is allegedly from international bribery schemes. Or the fact that both whistleblowers, one being the devout Democrat, said that Hunter Biden received special treatment specifically because he is Joe Biden's son. They both take it a step further and say that even the Justice Department interfered on behalf of Hunter Biden during the investigations. We can even talk about the fact that Hunter Biden's laptop, they weren't allowed to look at it. The prosecutors prevented investigators from looking at the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop. Or perhaps the greatest revelation, the lie that was told over and over again that a Trump appointee would be in charge of the results and the direction of this case, when it turns out, according to that Trump appointee himself in a meeting, he never had any power over the direction of this case. And if he was to pursue power, he would have to go through Joe Biden's network in order to hold Hunter Biden accountable. You know you live in a fascist country when you can no longer hold fascism accountable.
Again, that is Nico House. JB, what do you think of some of the
revelations that we learned during the
that before we get into the impeachment question? Like, does this feel like a tit for tat from the Republicans? Does this feel like, I mean, all of this sort of, for me, feels like this tit for tat. And I just don't mean the Republicans. I feel like both of these parties kind of do things as a tit for tat. But in particular, do you feel like these investigations, do you feel like a possible impeachment inquiry in order to get more information? Like, what do you think about all of this unfolding?
It's theater. It's a means to make it. It's the means to keep it salacious. Because Donald Trump is guilty of the same things that Joe Biden has done, and Joe Biden is guilty of the same things that Donald Trump has done. And so, because of what, of course, both families want to enrich themselves. They're both about that bag. And in doing so, one is like, oh my God, they've done horrible things in order to make more money. That's what the Democrats do. And then Republicans are like, oh, these done terrible things to get more money too. In reality, they're both attacking each other for business dealings, but nobody's going after each other about the war crimes.
Of course not.
And people will go, oh, but Donald Trump, he never started a war, but he continued them. He kept them going. And on top of that, are we also going to talk about the killing of Qasem Soleimani? That could have started another war with Iran. So if we're actually going to talk about actually going after them, they never okay. This is like being two murderers that were witnesses to each other's murderers, but instead of actually going after each other and saying, well, you murdered this person, they're like, this person stole a sandwich out of a Publix. Like, what? You're going to go after them on something small and tiny like that when you have a lot more dirt on them? But if you go after them after the dirt you have on them, that means they also have dirt on you. And that's the point. And everybody in Washington is dirty. That's the problem. And they never want to go after them after the actual stuff that they did.
Yes. Oh shoot, that's why my phone. I was like, why hasn't my phone gone off in a while? It's because it's dead. All right. All right. So let's continue to round out this segment. We're almost done here. This is really more of an education of just the details behind what's happening, because this might be one of those stories that's flying under everybody's radar because there's so much stuff going on. And this is one of them. And because they're not really trying to impeach him to remove him from office. They're just trying to use it as a way to get more information. So let's listen.
You bring an impeachment inquiry against President Biden this September.
Well, Maria, first you got to understand, only because Republicans took the majority have we found out what President Biden told us when he was running for office is not true. He said he never had any dealings with his son's business, and that he never even talked to him. We've now found out not only did he call into the meetings, he went to dinner, and after the dinner, Hunter Biden got a new Porsche, that there was $3.5 million transferred. We now found out as he was a sitting vice president, the family created 20 shell companies. They received 16 of 17 payments from Romania while he was vice president. We now found that the money would flow to 9 family members. He has to continue to change this. But since then, we found a movement of his administration of weaponization. We found that now the special prosecutor, David Weiss, actually let the statute of limitations run out on Hunter Biden's taxes. We found that the FBI actually informed Hunter Biden and the inaugural committee prior to our ability to go and interview him. We also have a DOJ that tried to give a sweetheart deal to Hunter Biden, and the judge said no. So if you look at all the information we've been able to gather so far, it is a natural step forward that you would have to go to an impeachment inquiry. And just so your viewers understand what that means, that provides Congress the apex of legal power to get all the information they need. Because remember what's laying out there right now. We have an attorney general that could have lied to the American public, which he has now named a special prosecutor. They have said 2 different things. And you have Gary Shapley on a little later today, IRS whistleblowers that have come forward that show that there's 2 forms of justice when it comes to America. But now when you look at this, it looks like a culture of corruption that's been happening within the entire Biden family. You've got to get to be able to answer that to the American public. The American public deserves an answer. Who's lying? What information went on? Who paid? And what foreign governments, when you found now that we know that an FBI actually had an informant, which got to a form of a 1023, claiming that they had bribed then vice president and saying that we would never find the money because they went through shell companies and withheld that from the IRS individuals investigating Hunter Biden.
I think you made such an important point right there that needs to be underlined. We would not know any of this if it were not for even your 5-person majority. Thanks to your investigations, the hearings, the on-the-record testimonies that your investigators have been doing, we have learned a lot about what has taken place allegedly during this period when Joe Biden was vice president. What other evidence are you seeking in order to bring that? Do you need more evidence to prove to your members? Do you have the votes for an inquiry?
Well, we have been out on summer recess right now working in the district. When we go back, we'll discuss this, but we find new information each week. We did not know about the whistleblowers coming forth. We did not know of all these times that the president lied to the American public. Each step we take contradicts what the Bidens had said before. Could you imagine being a sitting vice president and your family's members set up 20 shell companies? American companies don't do that. And then they deal with foreign countries that you've got 16 of 17 payments from Romania while you're vice president. And then we have the vice president, now president, claiming that he utilized American tax dollars to withhold from Ukraine to get a prosecutor fired. We just recently found out during break from a business partner with Hunter Biden that they were being pressured when they were on that board to try to do something about that prosecutor. So there's a lot of questions that still, and to be able to get the answers to these questions, you would need impeachment inquiry to empower Congress, Republicans and Democrats, to be able to get the answers that the American people deserve to know. I've had Democrats now tell me they're very concerned because they back this president based upon what he told America. And with each turn, we find that is not true.
Does it become...
So I think we'll wrap the segment with that video because, I mean, to be honest, I mean, this is to me, it's a ruling class distraction. And maybe, you know, because the story took 2 weeks to get to is because, you know, it's not, it is a story of interest and it's something we should know about what's happening with the ruling class. But this is not at all a top priority for us. This is just a distraction, JB, as to your to your point, and they want the people to be invested in these sort of childish back and forths that they have, as they don't do anything for us. Because what I hawken back to is what Mitt Romney said in the video. You know, we're only sending 5%. This is not even a lot of money. So the money, the billions of dollars, think about this, JB, $100 billion is not a lot of money to them, unless you want to spend it to solve homelessness, unless you want to spend it to create Medicare for all. $100 billion for weapons is nothing, but $100 billion for the people is everything in their eyes. So I'm just not convinced to care about this. Like, either way, I don't really care about this impeachment thing. But did you have any final thoughts on it before I close this out?
Yeah, the Republicans sound like the Democrats 2 years ago.
They do.
Yeah, that's it.
They do. And both of them do this. And before the Democrats 2 years ago, before that, it was Benghazi with the Republicans. So it's literally just back and forth, and there's somebody getting investigated, and that's what they do. And it's just like, why should poor working class people care about two corrupt groups weaponizing their corrupt justice system on each other? Like, I don't give a damn about that. So, all right, JB, I think that's going to do it, sir. You have the Sabby and JB show coming up next, or not next, but actually, we got 2 hours, actually over 2 hours before your show starts. It's a little different because it's usually so close after mine. I'm used to it being like right after, but because of my new time slot of being earlier, we do have a bigger cushion. Tell us about the topics. Tell us about what's happening with your show later on today.
Well, actually, it's kind of in line with what we were talking about earlier today. So we're going to be talking about really, there was a report done by Jesse Waters of Fox News where he actually talks about the influx of Black men that are now moving and actually empathizing more with Donald Trump since the onset of his new mugshot. So we're going to be talking about that, the truth behind it. I also have some contrasting news articles that I'll be going over. One saying that, yes, Black men need to lead the Democratic Party because they need to join with Donald Trump. And then the other one saying, oh, well, this article by Jesse Waters is a little racist, and here's why. And so we're going to be talking about that, me and Sabs, and because there is some truth to what's going on regarding Black men and Trump, and we got to figure out as to why, and so.
Do you know anybody personally? Because you're in a very important state, JB. You and Rome and you and Rome are in states that are very highly contentiously fought. So you have you're one of those that's live in the swing states. So your vote is very sought after, every year. But yeah, go ahead, continue what you were saying. I just noticed that point as you were talking. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, absolutely. And in regards to as far as how a lot of Black people feel, one of my fellow patients at dialysis, he is an older gentleman. He's in his 70s, and he calls Trump his president, and he loves Trump. And so he was one of the first Black men I ever met that was pro-Trump. And so there are some who feel like, hey, he's just like us. And so I think this is a conversation that's worth having, because a lot of times we as the Black community, sometimes we even see ourselves as a monolith. Sometimes we'll look at ourselves and go, well, yeah, of course. All Black people, we tend to mostly just sit with the Democrats, when in reality, that a tide is happening. The tide is shifting. So that's what we're going to be talking about this evening.
Right on. And for those that were looking for the story of the crisis of I'll put it up, but we're gonna push that story just like a lot of our stories where we have to push it to another episode. I don't know if you saw it, JB, but Margaret Kimberly wrote an article in Black Agenda Report. It's titled "The Crisis of Capitalism." Let me just bring it up. We're not going to read it, but this is what we're going to have to push to the next stream. This is the one thing that we weren't able to get to, and that's this article here. The climate crisis will end when capitalism ends. Ooh. So this article is a great article by Margaret Kimberly, and I'll read the caption. Biden knows that Democratic voters want action on the climate, but he does the bidding of corporations, including fossil fuel producers. The climate crisis won't end until capitalism ends. See my latest. And that's what she says in shouting out her article. So this article right here will cover, tomorrow's Friday. If we do a Nick and CJ tomorrow, we'll cover it. If not, I'll squeeze it in somewhere, but we definitely have to cover this article at some point, JB. So outside of that, how's your fundraiser? Shout out your fundraiser. Let me see if there's a flyer here for your fundraiser. Yeah, I think it is right here. If you want to shout it out.
Yep, definitely. So by the September 4th, we're trying to raise $750 for the Revolutionary Blackout Network Orlando Mutual Aid Chapter for our houseless neighbors. We're giving out toiletry care packages. These are going to be toothbrushes, toothpastes, razors for shaving. We're going to be giving away socks. We're going to be giving away feminine hygiene products to all the homeless people within Orlando, especially the ones that are in the outskirts of downtown Orlando who are further away from the shelters, so that they can survive, so that we can do at least something for them. Because right now we know we have a system that's not doing great for them. So we are more than a third of the way to our goal. If anybody would like to, you guys can just go to Cash App, $. In fact, I actually have the link right here. You guys can go to $ Orlando RBN, and then you guys can donate there. Some people don't have a Cash App. If you guys would like to, you guys can donate to like my Venmo. I mean, if you guys want to, I can just transfer the funds over there. If you guys want to, it's just at JB Font, for Venmo. But yes, if you guys would like to, you guys can do that. I have a few people to give shout outs to. I'm also going to give shout outs to them when I get back onto Twitter. But shout outs to William for the $25. Shout outs to Jax for $10. Richard for $50. Thank you so much. And Lisa for $25. So thank you so very much. In fact, just letting you guys know, we have a little over $100 left to our goal. So wow. In fact, it's $100 and we have about $115 left for our goal. So look, we're trying to push this out, get this out there so that we can help those people out here in downtown Orlando. So thank you so very much to everybody who has donated. Yes, at Pete. Pete says JB Font on Venmo. Yes, that's my Venmo. And if just please make sure to put in the notes that it is for Orlando RBN. So just let me know so that I can make sure to put it in there. But thank you so very much to everybody that's contributed so far. I am so excited for this. And once we do it, I'm gonna go live here on RBN. I'm gonna record video, and then I'm gonna let you guys see it. It's gonna be on a Saturday. It's gonna be great.
That's awesome. And just more activism we're looking to do. It's in the beginning stages, but we briefly talked about possibly doing something with all their chapters streaming in December, maybe some sort of Christmas sort of thing we'll do where we're just kind of all at our chapter events doing something. So look for that. It's completely in the beginning stages. We don't even know what it's going to be, so we don't have any details or anything like that. But look for that. And then that's you said Cash App. That's the Cash App link there. for those that wanted to get it. Oh, you know what? Super chats, and then I can get out of here. I almost forgot about that. Okay, I'll start from the bottom, everybody, and then I'll read the other notes. I see the other chats too, but I'll read the super ones first. Here's one here from Sabar Transportation. I'm from Kenya and remember severe drought in the 90s. Saddam and Gaddafi sent planes full of aid while France and the US tried to obstruct it from reaching us. We Africans will never forget. Wow. He's from Kenya, or this person, it could be maybe it's not a male, but it's from Kenya. And during the droughts in the 90s, they're saying Saddam and Gaddafi was trying to fly aid, and France and the US was trying to prevent that aid from getting to them, probably similar to how they're preventing aid from getting to the earthquake victims in Syria and where that earthquake was, Syria, and it bordered another country. I can't remember what the other country was, but here's another one here, another super chat. George Lucas was definitely anti-empire back in the day. His first movie, THX 138, precedes Star Wars. It was a warning to the poor and working class. Yeah. And then here's another one here from Darren. That last one was from Aisha Lynn. I didn't say her name. Aisha Lynn. This one. I wish JB were on RBN more. Kudos to JB. I always say this. We always say this, but yeah. JB has a show on Sunday and then the Sabby and JB show on Thursday. So maybe in the future, JB will find some time to give us another show, but we'll stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. Here's one from, that was from Darren. Here's one from Janice. Another one. First, this is what I read earlier. First past the post is a lie. There is no post. Now let me read some of the other ones you starred. It says, here goes. Bad cookies. It's good to see you safe and sound, JB. And here's Indie Media saying lots of friends and family in the chat. Love when that happens. And I think it's because it's this earlier time, JB, because I do remember I used to go early for a while. I was at an earlier time slot. Then I had to switch, and I noticed there were people like Rick is another guy who's usually in the chat. I didn't see him as often because when I changed my time slot. So good to see. Here's another one saying, hi, JB. Glad you made it through the hurricane. Yes, and we're all glad for that too. And I think that's all the ones we got starred. Okay, here. Oh, this is Jay. I was about to say we just got a new one. Who is this? This says Jay, the informant, give out free haircuts with an wireless cutter. Actually, Rome gives out free haircuts, and he'll be giving out haircuts at our RBN Detroit library. They'll be giving out, but he's done that in the past. Rome has given out haircuts to unhoused men in the past. So I think that's it, JB. Anything you wanted to say before I sign off? Go ahead.
Yeah, shout out to Pete also for the $50. Thank you so very much, Pete. I got it. So thank you so very much. And I'll make sure to add that to the total right when we would finish. So thank you so very much.
And I don't see any Rumble rants. I checked the. Okay. No Rumble rants and no donations on Rockfin, but thank you to those audiences on Rumble and Rockfin. And who's watching on Twitter? Where else are we on? Who's watching on Twitch? Who's watching on Facebook? We have our audience spread out everywhere. We just need to get on Odyssey and a couple of other platforms, and then we're there. So thank you for watching, though. We're going to be signing off. There is no... is there a video I could play? Let me see if there's a closeout video I can play for everybody here. Yeah. I guess I could play this video. Actually, no, let's play this one. This is where it's Kyle versus Kyle. And this is what we'll end with. Turncoat Dawn, another classic from Turncoat Dawn. And J and J, James and James, JB and CJ signing off here.
Talking about other people being dictatorial and Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. As bad as Biden is, you guys are significantly worse, and it's not even close. The Democrats are just way better. They're just way better. They're a trillion times better than Republicans.
All right, so there's a lot I have to say in response to this. These kinds of criticisms from this guy, I honestly believe that these people usually overstate how bad Trump is, and they understate how bad Biden is. Well, you're more ideologically in agreement with Biden than you are in agreement with Trump. Well, actually, when it comes to the First Step Act, I agree with Trump on that. When it comes to pardoning Alice Johnson, I agree with Trump on that. When it comes to TPP, Trump's against it, Biden's for it. I agree with Trump on that. I agree more with Trump on North Korea than I agree with Biden. I would need to be convinced that Biden would fight for at least one or two of my top 5 issues. Medicare for all, free college, living wage, ending the wars, and UBI. The people who say Trump is a fascist and they think he's like, basically, we can't survive another 4 years of America with him. Yes. The country will survive 4 years with Trump. The country will survive 4 years with Joe Biden. Again, I think they understate how bad Biden is. Why? On so many core issues, he's against us. Me, at least. I can't speak for this guy. Joe Biden pushed for NAFTA. He repeatedly pushed for TPP. He's a supporter of the Iraq War. On all the pivotal issues of his time, he was wrong. So stop overstating how bad Trump is. The country's still going to exist in 4 years. And understating how bad Biden is. Because it's annoying. I just don't agree with the people who are like, he's a fascist, he's a Nazi, the country's not going to exist in 4 years. You're hyperbolic and you're ridiculous.
You got knocked the fuck out, man!